Good morning, Las Vegas. It's a balmy 97 degrees here in the sunny state of Nevada, and we're here at BlackHat with CyberRisk Alliance and CyberRiskTV and all the other affiliations that we have. And I'm here with Matt Alderman. I'm Doug White, and we have been doing interviews for 2 days. We're going to do interviews today, and then we're going to wrap because everybody needs to sort of sober up and head over to DEF CON tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah. So it's just like it just begins again.
Just rinse and repeat. And repeat.
Because it starts with B-sides. So if you miss B-sides, which was last weekend, then you got BlackHat during this week, and then it rolls into DEF CON for the rest of the week. Yeah. So it's definitely a party atmosphere around.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter which casino you walk into. Like every restaurant says closed for a private event.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many vendors, so I did finally manage. I know some of you were probably paying attention to the my adventures with the vendor floor yesterday, where I got repulsed twice. I couldn't even get in. There were so many people. And I finally got in the vendor floor. I mean, you went in the vendor floor.
I did, for a little bit.
It was pretty nuts. I mean, there's so many vendors, and all the vendors are doing private events in all these restaurants and bars, and some of them are doing more than one. And you're like, wait, did I not see that before? And it's like, oh no, they're doing it again. So I mean, in that regard, it was a little bit like RSA, because I remember walking the streets in San Francisco, and there's every doorway is like private event. Private event.
But most of them, it used to be kind of like just Mandalay Bay. No, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's the Cosmopolitan was
I know. We went to
yeah.
dinner last night at the Cosmopolitan, and I didn't expect that, because that's pretty far. So if you don't know your Las Vegas landscape, the Cosmopolitan is one of the final turns in the F1 race. Actually, it is, but it's about a mile from here, maybe a mile and a half.
Yeah,
from
it's
here.
a good 5 properties away. It's Luxor, Excalibur, New York, Park MG,
Aria.
Yeah, Park MGM, Aria, then Cosmo. So it's 6 properties away.
Now he knows his Vegas landscape. I only know the F1 turns. I mean, he's like, oh yeah, and then you get to this casino, and then there's a little doorway where you
I know all the back corridors and the tram stops.
Okay, so
which ones connect on the insides, which ones don't.
So your future Vegas experience. Yeah. You could be a tour guide. Next year you could do.
Yeah, we should do like maps from all the hotels of the most efficient way to get to Mandalay Bay.
Well, that too.
Because Ubers, at certain times of the day, Ubers are almost impossible in the city. Like in the mornings, it's not too bad. But like in the afternoon, when everybody's trying to get out and get back in here, and everything comes into the garage now here at Mandalay Bay, it's nuts downstairs. Yeah. And so how do you bypass all that, right?
Yeah. So walk over to the Luxor.
Well, you can walk to the Luxor, or you can get the tram over to Excalibur.
Well, that's even better.
Walk across the street. There's a bridge right into New York. Right, and you can just keep going.
True. I did that last night. It was hot, but I did walk.
You're
all
only
the way
outside for a little bit to go across the bridge.
No, I didn't know that about walking inside.
Yeah, you can go right through New York. Then you go across the street into Park MGM, which is connected to the Aria, and there's a tram that takes you to Bellagio.
Ooh, you know what we should do? We should have like this Security Weekly bus. And we could do the show on the bus and just drive around Las Vegas the whole time and let people ride on the bus.
We did a party bus for my wife's 50th.
Didn't we? I think we did a Security Weekly.
We did, kind of a little one.
A long time ago, I remember something about.
We should order.
I vaguely
a party bus.
remember that,
because you can drink and have fun, and then we can do like short snippets, video snippets, both inside and outside the bus.
Ideas. But yeah, so we did a bunch of interviews yesterday. Did you have any good? I mean, obviously they're all good, but did you have any?
They're all good. I mean, we kind of wrapped those up yesterday, but post that I did more recordings. So I've been.
So you can't keep them all straight,
right? So I've done recordings on top of recordings this week. So Monday I did additional recordings. Yesterday I did additional recordings. So my recording schedule hasn't stopped. Today's actually my lightest day, and I have more Security Weekly interviews today, but I have fewer overall interviews, which is nice.
Yeah, I
tested out the podcast pods yesterday. So BlackHat, BlackHat. So rumor is BlackHat's going to be more friendly to media in the future. And because right now it's really hard, like we have to rent the suite because getting on the floor is way too cost prohibitive for me to get on the floor. But they put these podcast pods up on the 3rd floor.
Yes.
And there's 2 2s and 2 4s. So you can record them, but when you look at them, you're like, wait, like too much background noise. But when you sit in it,
Quiet.
it's very insulated. It's actually very good. I was kind of surprised, right? Because you were thinking they're right next to each other. Like you can hear people talking. You can a little bit, but they're so padded on the inside. So it was great to test them out yesterday. So we did some recordings up there.
I did interviews in a glass booth at Microsoft Ignite a few years ago. Why didn't you invite me back? And that was like, I was really concerned about it because they had about, I don't know, 10 or 12 of them. Like, you know, they were literally attached to each other. To say it was like a bank of payphone booths, and they weren't very big. But it was actually great because you were actually on the floor,
right?
And there was like total madness going on around you, and there's people pressed up against the glass and everything else, including people. I'm going, are those people in trouble? Because there was these people getting pushed back against the glass, and I was like, I think something bad's happening over there. But you couldn't hear anything, so it was a really good idea.
That's the rumor of what's coming to BlackHat next year.
I heard that rumor too.
Is that there will be a broadcast alley with glass cubes on the floor next year.
Well, there were glass cubes on the vendor floor too. I don't know what those were.
Well, they've got down there. You have so many different things going on. You've got the theaters down there. You have Arsenal down there.
There was a whole little bank of like those same kind of little booths over by that food area on the other side.
Were they meeting rooms? No?
They look like people were, maybe they were just meeting rooms. Yeah, there were people in them, so I don't know what they were doing.
I've only gotten through half of the floor, so I have to get through the other half today.
I actually managed to get through most of it. I think I did. I missed a lot of stuff, but I was looking for all the key people that sponsored my show, and wandering around, all that. So, but it's very huge and vast, and I think you could probably hire like a local tour guide to take you through the vendor floor.
Yeah,
in fact, that's a good idea. You could have people down there like if you would like to pay a premium, you can get escorted through the vendor area to all the best swag, all the best booths, and we'll make sure you get there quick. And it could be like the Louvre. Have you ever been to that Louvre tours?
Yeah.
They have these tours that are called it's offensive to me, but there are these tours, and they start at the first thing in the morning. You have to be there at like 6 a.m. before they open, and they promise you'll get to see up close the most famous paintings. There's a list,
right?
And they run. The minute like the doors open, the guides are apparently all in on it. They all run to different somebody's running to the Mona Lisa, and somebody's running to this, and somebody's running to that, and you run to all these like different paintings so that you can maybe possibly see them. Because if you ever go to the Louvre in Paris and you want to see some of the famous paintings they have that are like super, like the Mona Lisa is the best example.
Right.
You're not going to get anywhere near it. There's this giant room full of a mob, and maybe if you're tall enough or somebody can hold you up, you can see over the heads of this little painting.
And by the way, it's not that impressive. I've seen it.
It's a lot smaller than
it's actually really small.
Yeah, it's very small.
So you think it's this big painting? No, it's a small painting. You're like all this work and effort to get there, and you're like, oh.
You get used to looking at paintings in books, and they're like normal size, and then like one of my most, this is totally has nothing.
I know,
but it's fun. One of my most awful life revelations was that I had for years looked at Salvador Dali paintings, and in books, and then I went to the Salvador Dali Museum, and the paintings are like this big. I mean, they're amazing that somebody could paint. I was like, what did he paint these with? The eyelashes? With this incredibly detailed painting. And it's like this big. And you're like, what is this? I thought this thing was like the size of a room. No, it's these little teeny, it's like a postage stamp. It's like insane. I'm like, how do you do that? It's nuts. But except for Rothko. Then you go to see the Rothkos, and it's like, oh, it's 3 stories high. Yeah. Okay.
Picassos are a pretty good size. Because I've been to the Picasso Museum in Barcelona. So those are more normal size. But we digress.
I've never been accused of that before. But
Doug never digresses.
But anyway, I mean, we did a lot of interviews. There were so many vendors, it was almost overwhelming. It was such a big space. And some of the booths are crazy. They're like, usually, I mean, we always get that. There's some that are crazy. Yeah. But there was a lot of crazy ones that were really big with massive numbers of staff people there and so forth.
I mean, the floors are packed.
But every place I've been out here, that was as far as I got from Mandalay Bay was the Cosmopolitan. Tonight I'm going to go to the Davidoff Lounge to see Jeff Mann. But
is that the one at Caesars?
No, it's the one that's
here.
It's the standalone one way off up at the other end of the strip. Got it. I have to.
So we did make it to Bellagio last night.
Oh, you did go to Bellagio.
Yeah, and I don't remember.
Was it full of people from BlackHat too?
I know there were Black Hat people there. I was trying to think if any of the venues were reserved. I think one of the Like they have the little nightclubs over there, so I'm pretty sure
that's getting a little further away. I mean,
Yeah, but it's
Bellagio is
still-
now another tick.
Yeah, but
on
Cosmo
beyond.
was crazy last night. Like the Cosmopolitan was nuts. Like
It
there was a
was
lot.
really crazy.
Yeah, there were a lot of events for the vendors at the Cosmopolitan.
Well, yeah, I
so
got
it's-
completely lost. I ended up walking into the parking garage, and that was where all the Ubers and cabs were going, and it looked like rush hour at Grand Central or something. It was just absolutely insane. There was people pouring out of cabs, and I was like, oh, this may have been a bad
The Chandelier Bar where we stopped because we had to have a cocktail at Chandelier Bar. They had different groups, and they had a big event coming in at like 10 o'clock, and we're like, that's fine. We're going to be out here and in bed by 10 o'clock because we have an early start. So tonight, I will not be in bed by 10 because I did thank you, Pantera, for getting us access to the Hakkasan party. It's my favorite nightclub.
Okay.
So we're going to Hakkasan tonight.
They're important.
Anybody who wants to go dancing, come on over to Hakkasan.
Oh, it's a dance club.
Oh, yeah.
I've never been there.
No?
No.
Oh,
I don't know how to
gosh.
dance. I was always in the band. I mean, I was like, I don't know how to dance. I mean, I know how to play music. I can play music for dances.
Okay. Yeah.
But I never went out on the floor.
This is all DJ house music.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I've been to stuff like that, because I have friends that were
Pretty much.
DJs and doing,
Yeah.
like acid house and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that I understand.
Yeah. It's I love going
Then you
over
just
there.
cram into a dance for like 8,000 people. And
yeah, you're good until about 10:30, and then they open up to the public. So right around when they open up to the public, you got to get out of there because the place just gets packed.
yeah, I've been to a few clubs like that. I was like, I'm not going out there.
Yeah.
I was like, that's crazy. Like, how do you even get out there?
Yep.
And so but that was in New York, not here. So today's the last day of BlackHat.
Today's officially the second and last day of BlackHat. It officially started yesterday,
Right.
but we've been recording for 3 days,
have.
even though the event's only 2 days. Because a lot of people fly in
Yeah.
on Monday, Tuesday. Some people flew in over the weekend. So today is the official second and last day of BlackHat.
and then DEF CON starts tomorrow.
Correct.
So
Starts
and DEF CON lasts till Sunday, right?
Yeah, I think through Sunday.
So
I've only done DEF CON once, believe it or not. I've only done it once.
I've been to lots of DEF CON. Where do you even know where it is? Where is DEF CON? What hotel is it?
I don't know. It was at Bally's.
Is it at Bally's
3 or
still?
4 years ago when I
Yeah,
went.
it used to be at.
But I don't know where
I
it's
don't
at.
even know where it is.
I don't even know where it is.
They just tell me where to go.
There you go.
Yeah, so I just do. But thanks, Sam. Sam always told us where to go.
Exactly.
Be there at 8 o'clock.
Right.
You'll need to take this car over there, and
Yeah.
because otherwise we were just like a herd of cats. And she's
much.
like, "No, Paul, Larry, back. No, come back. Come back over here. No, we lost Jeff again. And, he's wandered off." And but
I haven't seen Jeff this entire trip.
I know he's here though, because I'm supposed to meet him at that party tonight. But I haven't seen him. I haven't heard from him. But that's how Jeff is. He just appears when you need him. It's
or
just
not.
Or not. Yeah, it's like that darkest moment when you're lost in the forest. You keep saying, "Jeff, where are you? For the love of Jeff, save me!" And then he doesn't appear. But then when you don't expect him, there he is, standing
You
in an
guys know
alley.
where we are. We're at Mandalay Bay. We won't tell you which floor, but we're at Mandalay Bay.
Yeah, but wherever you are, Jeff, I know he's here somewhere. I can feel his spirit amongst us. A rumor was somebody saw Jeff Man. There was a rumor that
I know Mandy's here too, but I don't know where
there
Mandy's
was
at.
a rumor Mandy was here. I haven't
seen her all week.
No, I have not seen Mandy.
I have not seen her.
But yeah,
We
regardless
miss you
of
all, hosts, co-hosts.
We do. Yeah, everybody should be here. It was like the old days. It was like the big family gathering at DEF CON, BlackHat, B-sides.
We'd be here for over a week.
Yeah, it was like crazy.
We cover B-sides
Had to stay
through
in the
BlackHat
Tuscany
all the
for
way
a
through
week.
DEF CON. Yeah. Oh yeah. Tuscany Suites. Yeah.
Good old Tuscany.
The good news is they're really big rooms.
They
the
were
bad
really
news
big
is They're
rooms.
not that great.
And there was often another person in there that you didn't know. It's like, "Hi, I'm Steve." You're like, "Wait, what?" Like, "No, I'm not in this room, but I'm in your room. Like, we're going to be friends."
Oh.
It's always fun. We always have such a good time in Las Vegas, and like I said, I hadn't got to come for a while, but it's always fun memories of all the crazy
All the old
things that
stuff
went
we used to
on,
do,
all
yeah.
the old stuff that was happening back then, because it's just a fun time. If you didn't get to come, I'm sorry. Maybe you could come next year and be out here, because, like I said, it is. I would call it almost madness out on like in all these bars and clubs. There's so many people and everybody's going crazy, and it does look like a lot of fun. I wish it wasn't so boring, but nevertheless, I will be at that other party. I will see Jeff, man, tonight, or I won't. It's like Schrodinger's Jeff or something like that. You just never know. He's both there and not there.
You just tied in quantum to Jeff Mann
I
somehow.
have to tie quantum to Jeff. It's like, Jeff is both neither here nor there until you open the box, collapse the wave, and then he's one or the other. That's how quantum works. Got it? Einstein said no, but he was wrong. And I like being able to say that. Anyway, stick around because we got a bunch of interviews for you today here at the last day of BlackHat Live. And we'll be back in just a little bit. I'm going to get to talk to Danny from ThreatLocker, so that's pretty cool.
You got your ThreatLocker shirt on.
I got my ThreatLocker shirt.
The new one I got you yesterday.
It is. It's the one Matt went and got me. I couldn't get in. Matt knew he's secret tunnel or something.
No.
He went around the back.
I was patient, Doug. I was patient.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't have time. It wasn't even that I wasn't patient. I could have shoved my way through there. It was just, I'd get there and I'd be like, okay, I got to turn around and go back or I'm not going to make it back for my next interview. And then I was like, okay, I got a little further this time, but yeah, anyway. So thanks, Matt. And we'll see all of you very shortly with more interviews. Welcome to BlackHat 2025, Day 3 from a mystery floor in Mandalay Bay. We're still here, recording live from the CyberRiskTV Studio in Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. I'm Doug White, and joining me for this one is a very special interview. I've never gotten to interview this person, but I was really happy that he was going to come along. I usually interview Rob Allen, but today I get to talk to the real person, Danny Jenkins, the CEO and co-founder of ThreatLocker. Hi, Danny.
Hi, thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I was so excited to get to talk to you because, like I said, I've had Rob on my show like a bunch of times, but I never had you on. So I was like, here we are at long last. I actually asked to get to talk to you. So
yeah, well, that's good. And Rob, Rob's a great guy, and
he is.
Apart
awesome.
from his obsession with Max, he's a great guy.
Well, yeah, he has that thing.
Yeah.
No, I know about that. Yeah, we talk about that too sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, he's so easy to talk to. So it's always a pleasure when he comes on because I don't really have to prep anything when I'm going to have Rob. Like sometimes we have guests and you're like, I better do a bunch of research. And I'm like, oh, it's Rob. I'll just talk to Rob for 30 minutes.
You know, in ThreatLocker, we do a really bad job at prepping for speeches, interviews. We just like that. I'm speaking after this event downstairs, and I think that I literally just looked at the slides and put them together before I came down the elevator.
Okay, that's all right. Well, it doesn't show. I mean, it never. At least it doesn't show with Rob. So maybe you're about to fall apart on me and just be like the rest of the.
Possibly.
I've heard that, but no, it's fine. I think that's great. I mean, I think organic is good sometimes. Yeah. And I think people appreciate, especially in the industry, people appreciate organic.
Yeah, well, it's got to be real. I mean, we're dealing with real problems. So.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what we were talking about before we started filming, which we should have started filming a while ago, but. It was about FedRAMP and all this kind of stuff. I know that there's people that just immediately say FedRAMP, I know what it is, and there's people that go, what? Could you just tell us a little bit about what FedRAMP actually is?
So essentially, FedRAMP is, well, it's not even a certification. So you get a 3PAO audit. It's essentially a way of proving that you've completed the security requirements in order to sell to CMMC defense contractors or the US Navy or DHS. And the idea is you get a third-party audit come in. It's an absolute nightmare to do.
Yes,
I spent $1 million preparing for an audit to find no more useful information just to complete the audit. I don't think we did anything from the preparation. We should have just done the audit.
I've never done a FedRAMP. I mean, it's a compliance. If you're not filming, it's a compliance program, a la other types of compliance, and it is from Department of Defense and the U.S. government. So if you're wanting to sell there, yeah. And it's super, super challenging. I've read some of the specs, and I've consulted with people that were trying to begin the process of FedRAMP.
It's very difficult. Look, it's good because what it's essentially doing is it's taking this cybersecurity framework, 801.71, and it's saying you have to implement every single one of these controls at the most extreme level.
Yes.
Plus a bunch of other stuff. And we're going to have someone audit it. And then once you do that, you can now be listed on the FedRAMP marketplace.
Right.
And you can get sponsors and become authorized, and it's a painful process, but obviously creates a lot of opportunity because if you are a defense contractor now, new CMMC rules, I'll say, require that you use, if cloud services are 3PAO audited for FedRAMP equivalency.
Yeah, I worked for a company a long time ago that got bought by a company that was FedRAMP. We won't mention any names, but it was really, I was just me. I was like an individual, and I was literally doing the kind of stuff I'm doing here. So I was evangelist for this, and they literally called me. This larger company called me and said I had to be FedRAMP, and I said it's just me. And they were like, yeah, you're going to need to all your endpoints. We're going to need to meet your accounting department, your legal team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, okay, wait, that's all me. It's just me.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, this will never fly.
It is really difficult. The controls are really difficult. Some of the stuff is a pain because you can't have integrations with third parties that aren't FedRAMP. So if you have dual factor on your server and you're sending push notifications to your phone,
was my problem.
Yeah, and now you've got to remove that and use something else. You really have to contain the environment very, very closely. And from a security point of view, nothing much really changed in ThreatLocker in order to get the certification. There were some small configurations that had to change. But for a process, we now have an extra 4 steps so that we have to do and to get something live.
I was removed. I couldn't comply. I mean, it was impossible. The amount of money I made from these people was nowhere near what it would have cost me to be even remotely close to some kind of compliance. So it was just like, okay, we're out.
It's very, very difficult. But when you're a software vendor, you're in the space.
You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. I think it's also good that we're forcing people to step up. I don't necessarily agree with. I think some of the things they require you turn on are actually not security.
My experience with it was like a lot of these things, it kind of swung way extreme because there had never been anything, and people went, okay, we got to lock everything down, and they just sort of checked every box.
It also depends on the auditor as well, because they've got this whole, you must have listed hardware in the database, and then another section, you must have hardware that is currently supported by the vendor, but they haven't updated the database in 8 years. So, exactly. And you've got to deal and navigate through that. And that's where a lot of the stress comes through, because you're like, well, do I buy? And then there's a rule saying if the hardware is pending listing, you're allowed to use it, but there's no pending listing database.
Right.
So,
and then it does depend on the auditor. It depends on how much the auditor knows about specific things. Because I was a SOX auditor, and which is nowhere near as specific as FedRAMP. But, it depended, because when I took over that role, the person who'd been doing it was an accountant. They didn't know anything about the tech.
Yeah, a lot. That's a lot of IT compliance. SOC 2 Type 2 is very much CPAs who are doing the audit.
But they also didn't know when somebody was basically giving them the business, and they didn't know the difference in a mainframe and a mini computer and a PC. And
that's, you see that a lot with auditors. But I think if you know you're going to get audited for something, you do it right, because you don't know if the guy who's coming in
because you didn't know.
It knows or doesn't know, and you're gonna fail.
And if you're unlucky, you get me.
And look, I don't think a lot of this, you come into debates with the auditor as to why is this like this, why is this like this.
Anymore, I think there's a lot less debate. It's just kind of like case law. It's been sort of settled. It's like this established that this is what this has to be, and these are not exceptions and all this kind of stuff. Back when I was doing that, there was a lot more exceptions, and Sarbanes is not as strict.
Yeah, I'd say the auditor says, I want this technology to achieve this, and then you read the requirements. Well, it says you must have this encrypted. It doesn't say I have to use this technology to encrypt it. And sometimes when you go through the audit, because there's hundreds of items, you pick. You say, okay, well, what am I going to fight on, and what am I just going to change because it's cheaper for me to change than argue?
Yeah, because I wasn't an external auditor; I was an internal auditor, so I was helping them prep for for dealing, and it was a lot like being involved in court cases, because we had legal teams that were preparing, like, okay, this is the hill we'll die on, but these things, do it and see what happens.
I'll say one thing: if I could do it all over again, I would go back and skip all the preparation companies. I mean, we spent nearly $1 million on preparation.
Yeah.
And just do the audit, and come back, find the findings, and then re-audit.
I saw people doing that. I mean, I don't know about FedRAMP, but I know in the SOC stuff, we saw companies that would just say, this is kind of like that. I'm just going to take the SAT without prep and see how I do. And I get a bunch of free feedback.
Well, and it's not so much. I think we're quite unique because we were always following NIST standards anyway. We already had the controls in place. So if you're not doing that, then
you shouldn't do. Yeah.
The problem we have is we spent so much time trying to establish how an auditor was going to interpret and know what to do. Yeah. And the preparation companies will never give you. They'd say this isn't right. So what should I do? And they won't give you an answer.
Okay.
So no. And we went through multiple preparation companies trying to get straight answers. So because they don't know what the auditor is going to say, so they're going to say we got a problem with this, but we don't know what the solution. I
think because we were so early going, because this was literally when Sarbanes first started.
Yeah, and Sarbanes is not.
We were working very closely with the external audit firm and the auditors. So I mean, not in collusion or anything like that, but it was like we had a lot of conversations because nobody really necessarily knew what we were doing and how we were going to do it, even including the external auditors at that point.
So, but we got through it. We're now on the FedRAMP marketplace. Okay. We have the 3 PAO, so any defense contractors that meets the CMMC requirement. We have a sponsor for the authorization as well, which is coming up soon as well.
Could we talk about this DAC thing a little bit? I know this is a new thing that you're adding, this defense against configurations thing, and when I see stuff like that always makes me scared and happy, because configurations are a nightmare for everybody. I mean, and especially in the sort of modern age, and you flip one switch the wrong way and all hell breaks loose. So
So it actually started off as quite a small thing. So we've got about 54,000 companies that use ThreatLocker now. Small businesses, large businesses, airlines, airports, hospitals, banks, financial companies, all over the shop. And the way ThreatLocker works is really we're denying by default. So we're closing ports by default. We're using dynamic ACL, so you can't even see a network if you're on the network. We've got allow listings and blocking all untrusted software. We're ring fencing applications so they can't stay out of their lane. And when you take a properly secured environment, it's very, very difficult to get breached. Not impossible, nothing's impossible, but very, very difficult to get breached. Yeah, we have customers who get breached, and we go back, and every single time it's because they didn't lock down their machines, or they have no network policy, or they have permitted the entire Windows folder. And we said, we've got to solve this problem. And first thing we did, a lot of it was really basic, like their machines literally were not in secured mode. So we got our account managers to start emailing and calling customers saying, hey, your machines, we want to talk to you. You haven't really configured your account properly. They're not secure. Can we get on the call?
Right.
And it helped a little bit, but it didn't help fully, because I got a customer in monitor mode, not locked down, got ransomware, got really mad. No one told me I wasn't locked down. I said, well, literally, you've had 5 emails from your account manager in the last 6 months. And they were like, but they're just trying to get me on the call to sell me something. It's like, no, they were trying to get you on a call to lock you down. There's nothing less for them to sell you. They want to lock you down. And so what we did is we said, well, let's go and look at all of the configuration. We started off with, let's just look at all of the configurations that people make with ThreatLocker's product and the errors they make. And let's compile a report that goes out every week in an email very clearly saying you've got 3 critical, 2 high configurations. And it started off just with a ThreatLocker configuration. And then we started realizing that in order for someone to want to open this report, it's got to have more value than this is your ThreatLocker. So we're on the endpoint. We have full control and see what happened on the endpoint. So we actually added 170 checks against the endpoint.
Okay.
And that are not necessarily ThreatLocker checks, non-ThreatLocker checks, things like, have you got a screensaver lock policy? Do you have FIBs enabled, which isn't on the high, because unless you're FedRAMP, you don't really care about it. And it will tell you all of those, and it will tell you how to remedy them. The other thing is, because we went through so much pain trying to read and interpret NIST English, if we call it that.
We've all had that.
Yeah. So we actually went and aligned each of these checks to NIST, HIPAA, CIS control, and said, okay, you don't have a lock policy. This is where you potentially violate this compliance, this compliance, this compliance, and this compliance.
Wow.
So in the same dashboard, you can go in and you can see your trend over history. How's my compliance trending? How's my checks? How many criticals do I have? How many lows do I have? Not everyone's going to have lows. It's inevitable, but you shouldn't have critical or highs.
So it gets rid of my massive spreadsheet that I had to have back then, because I had massive spreadsheets. I had to learn what a pivot table was, because it got so complex that, it's essentially a 3-dimensional array at that point, just to keep up with what violates which and where and how all those things come together.
It shows you it. You get the email every week. So the email is going to very clearly tell you, you have configuration issues. These are high level. We're not going to include details in the email because email is not secure, and go into the portal, see your configuration issues, see which computers, see remedies. If ThreatLocker can remedy it, we've also added a lot of the remedies into the configuration manager, which we're including free in our Protect package anyway. So you can go in and say, actually, I want to turn on the Windows screensaver, check this box here. I want to turn on FIBs, this here, making it very, very easy. And I was surprised because, even after going through FedRAMP audit and going through our own ridiculous security controls, when we ran it on our own agents, we found failures, I'll call it, like not epic failures. Yeah. So fails. I think the temperature is it failed the test.
Slight to the marred surfaces.
Nothing that was going to end the world, but we had like machines that had macros permitted, and it was like, why do we have machines that have macros permitted?
We all have those.
We don't even use macros. So but what was really cool is it took us, we're 700 employees, probably 900 devices. It took us 5 minutes to remedy all those issues using the ThreatLocker portal.
Okay, that sounds fun.
And not every issue is going to be 5 minutes, but the ones we did, it was very easy.
I understand, because I just remember, and I want to ask you about applications too, because there's another layer to this about the system. I just remember having to go through those things, and and we were literally doing like an exemplar, like bring us one system.
Yeah.
We're going to make this the exemplar for everybody, because we can't possibly go through 20,000 machines. It just wasn't possible at the time. But so when people add applications to this, so this is covering the system config, are we looking at this at an application level next?
So we're looking, so you get an application report as well, which shows you all your applications, your types of applications. This is looking at every single application and the configuration of every application. So we'll tell you, for example, you are allowing TeamViewer. Well, TeamViewer is a bad example. I'll say you're allowing 7-zip.
Okay.
And you do not have a policy in place to prevent 7-zip from going out the internet. It was made in Russia. This potentially allows it to exfil data. You're allowing 7-zip, you don't have a policy in place to prevent 7-zip from writing files, and it can be used to encrypt files. So we're going to actually go down to every application level and say, you don't have a recommended policy for this application. Because it's not our job to just say you should use 7-zip or you shouldn't use 7-zip.
You can put it in if you want to.
Yeah. What we're trying to achieve is, okay, you've got an application. these are the recommended constraints you put in place because you've chosen this application. PowerShell shouldn't be able to see all your files. Do you have a policy in place to automatically lock down admin tools in the event of a high threat score? So it's going to check every app, and then if you don't, it will give you, here's add these policies, and this is what you do, and it makes life a lot easier for them.
It sounds like it would really make life a lot easier. Those are things I dreamed about in 2005 when we were looking at some of this stuff, and it just didn't exist, and we were trying to map out ACLs and who can touch this and what can this touch and all this. We didn't have any way to do it. It was just maybe we could write a script, but
this is our first release. It's gone into available public beta to our customers right now. We don't charge for it. It's a free product. It's part of our platform, so you've got to have something. Yeah, sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Well, you can do a free trial, and it will give you the same report anyway. But it gets part of the platform. It shows you everything as soon as you have any agent installed.
You should do a free trial. I'm telling you, really. I mean, I'm not giving you sales pitch. I'm just saying I did the free trial because I was really interested in this, and it is really cool. I like it.
And the free trial, it also tells you not just you're going to get your DAC report, tells you all your compliance issues, but it's also going to tell you, hey, you've got a coupon clipper that has permissions to your passwords in your browser, so you can see any passwords you enter, and it was made in China. So you're going to see a lot of data.
And I think that's the thing that people need to be aware of. And I think sometimes they're just not. So we downloaded this tool, we bought this tool, whatever, and you don't think about, was this made in China? Was this made in Russia? Was this made, where?
And we did a deployment to one of the supervisor elections thingies. They had a meltdown with the amount of Russian software they had on their machine.
Well, it was like when you told people Kaspersky was from Russia, and they're like, what? I'm like, no, it's a Russian company.
Well, 7-Zip is one that comes up.
No, and that 7-Zip's the modern one. Yeah,
that's I don't. The 7-Zip I've never seen have a backdoor in or any kind of.
No, but it is a Russian company.
And you should know. You should. I suppose. Look, you got to make risk choices.
There you go.
And the other one we see is Cooper a lot. It's a coupon clipper. It's probably on 50% of organizations we deploy to. That's how bad. It saves you money on your Amazon order or whatever, but it's made in China, and the permissions it has in the browser allow it to see everything on every web page you go to. And the reason being is because it's scraping the web page, including any passwords or anything, and it's saying, oh, look, you're trying to buy Nike shoes X, I can give you a discount on this. It becomes a risk basis. Am I willing to potentially allow a company to gain access to my data for 20 cents off my Amazon order?
There you go.
And if maybe you say, well, look, I trust this company, the American company, they're well known. If they're not well known and they're made in China, you start saying the risk isn't worth the reward.
Right. I completely agree. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Yeah. Thanks, Danny Jenkins from ThreatLocker for joining us today. If you want to find out more about ThreatLocker, please visit securitywweekly.com/ThreatLockerBH. For all the BlackHat 2025 coverage by CyberRisk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/BlackHat. And thanks, Danny. It was really a pleasure. It's my first time to get to interview Danny Jenkins. So all the rest of you stick around. We'll have some more interviews all the rest of the day. And we'll continue going here at BlackHat 2025.
Thank you.
Welcome to BlackHat 2025. It's day 3. We're still here. Floor undisclosed, recording live from the CyberRiskTV Studio at Mandalay Bay here in sunny, hot Las Vegas. It's getting hotter. The smoke's settling down a little bit, actually. I'm your host, Matt Alderman, and joining me for this interview segment is Michael Leland. He is the Vice President, Field Chief Technology Officer at Island. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
So we're going to talk about compromised credentials, browsers. Let me start with a little, I saw the facts, right? I work for a human risk management company, which was a combination of security awareness and training and trying to detect human behavior. We've done a horrible job in security awareness and training phishing. Like, if you look at the last 16 years of the Verizon breach report, we stink, right? So we have to assume that credentials are going to be compromised. So let's just put that out on the table now. Compromised credentials are always going to happen. There's no way to stop them. So the question is, how do we stop them?
So I think the assumption that the breach has already happened, the assumption that the credentials have already been hacked, the assumption that they're probably already available on the dark web and you can find them somewhere, leads us to the reality that attackers are no longer breaking in, but they're logging in. Right? So how do you protect credentials if you know they're already exposed in the wild? First thing you can do is enforce a solid, mature, multi-factor authentication strategy, right? Where you need at least the credentials and something else, whether that's biometric or worst case, but best case scenario, SMS PIN code. At least something that's giving you one more factor is always essential.
Right.
But the problem is many applications that are not SSO enabled, that don't have MFA, or maybe there's an application that only asserts MFA at the initial login. But you know that if they browse over to this little corner of the application, that's where the sensitive data is. Maybe it's at that time that you assert a presentation layer MFA, something else that validates the user. So even though they may have access to an application, you can still enforce they don't have access to sensitive information.
Certain parts of that app, yeah.
But the most important thing, and you pointed this out, security awareness training is great. I don't like to diminish it by calling it lipstick on a pig, but at some point it's not enough. And it never will be enough. Right? So the users are always our weakest link. Right? They're going to click things they shouldn't. Even well-trained, well-educated knowledge workers are going to click that link because it looks legitimate.
It does.
AI has made it look that much
way
more legitimate.
Yeah. Even the smishing attacks, the SMS-based attacks, now the unsubscribe links. So looks like you're getting this malicious thing, or it's like, wait a minute, I don't have that account. Then they put an unsubscribe link in there. Don't click on that either, folks, because that's doing the exact same thing. It's crazy. These attacks are getting so sophisticated. That's why I said we just have to assume credentials are compromised.
We also can't trust our eyes and ears anymore, right? Deep fakes have gotten to such a point that if your CFO calls you on the phone and says, I need this amount transferred, sounds like him, let's do a Zoom call. Right, it looks like him. Right, you have no way of knowing if it's legitimate.
Right.
So if you assume that your credentials are compromised, if you assume you can't trust your eyes and ears, and you assume you can't click any links, how do you protect?
Right.
So users are the weakest link, but the second weakest link in our entire fabric of knowledge worker communication is the consumer browser itself. Right. So what if you could define this application data boundary? What if you could say that these are the trusted applications? They're only allowed to live, inside this secure enclave. We need to protect the intentional or unintentional movement of data out of those. So that means copying or controlling everything from cut, copy, paste, file, print, save, all of those things. But if they browse outside of that secure enclave and try using their corporate credentials, either in an unsanctioned but legitimate application, so maybe your policy is that OneDrive is where you store all sensitive information. What if that user tries going to Box and creating another Box account with their corporate credentials? That is the exact same use case as a potential phishing attack. It is an unsanctioned domain or destination that they're trying to put their credentials in. When you enforce a policy at the presentation layer, that means that you're watching every keystroke they're typing. You're seeing where they're entering those credentials into. And if you identify that they're trying to either create a Box account with corporate credentials, or they've clicked on a link that brings them to a login page that looks legitimate, but it's a harvesting site, the minute they actually type their username, the last letter of the top level domain, mleland@island.io, the O will trigger the policy. It says, look, you're trying to use your credentials somewhere you shouldn't, right?
So it's capturing it in real time.
In real time, yes. Yep. So while we can't always prevent the credentials from being harvested, can we prevent the credentials from being utilized?
Yeah.
The other big thing is if you control what browser they're allowed to access business applications from, all of a sudden you can say that those same credentials, legitimate or not, or the usage of them is legitimate or not, can't be used in a secondary browser.
Yeah.
You now have full control because you control the gate.
Yeah.
Right?
So do you recommend then, so obviously you guys are the enterprise browser company, so use Island for all your corporate apps, but then allow like the consumer browsers to be used for other sanctioned things, or do you try to centralize everything around a centralized enterprise browser, right? Because I could see some organizations saying, well, we'll allow them to use a consumer browser for non-work related stuff because we allow it. Some organizations may or may not, but can you then kind of split and enforce that where you can't use the corporate credentials in a consumer browser also?
So when I mentioned there's two weakest links, we talked about the user side.
Yeah.
The other is the extensions and plugins.
Oh yeah.
Right? So we saw this past December, the Cyberhaven breach, even a legitimate trusted extension can be compromised with a simple OAuth hack that allows a compromised extension to be re-uploaded and then get distributed to all of the users. The number one reason for those compromised extensions is either deploying crypto Bitcoin loggers or creators and info stealers.
Yeah.
Right. Info stealers represented the highest amount of credential theft in the last 24 months. So, to your point about what browser you get to use, if you can enforce both extension protection as well as that level of presentation layer DLP, either in a full enterprise browser or in a consumer browser with the enterprise extension installed, then maybe you get the best of both worlds. But the way we see our customers typically do it is they leverage the extension in the browser to identify what their risk posture is, right? What are the applications primarily being used? So the old world of shadow IT, right? Show me all the sanctioned applications.
See, I'm going to Salesforce, I'm going to HubSpot, I'm going
Exactly.
I'm using all these SaaS-based apps. Okay, so I get an inventory of all the apps that a user's using, right? Which now allows you to start to think about some policy enforcement, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep. So you learn from the telemetry you gather to pick the first use case. You say, looks like the predominant usage of applications that put my data at risk, Salesforce, SAP, Workday. Maybe you decide that's the small microcosm. So you build a small policy that says these applications now can only be accessed through the enterprise browser. And the way you do that could be any number of ways. Conditional access in your IDP that say all authentication requests to these applications must come from a known Island browser. Could be certificate pinning, or it could be that extension that we install that when you try going there from a consumer browser, it gives you this gentle nudge. It says, by the way, corporate policy now says that to be safe, you've got to, and we'll even launch that browser and load that web page for you.
Oh, nice. Let's talk about plugins. Because that's the other thing you kind of mentioned is also getting an inventory of those plugins and controlling those plugins. Right. I think the interview right before this, they were talking about one of the coupon cutters is out of China, and it's harvesting data, right? That's a plugin people are putting in their browser. So I assume Island can help enforce which plugins can be used and not used to help prevent other data harvesting activities.
So, back to the Cyberhaven incident again. We learned from that event just how easy it is to compromise a legitimate extension or how many illegitimate extensions have already been published. There are 230,000 extensions published to the Google Chrome store. We took it upon ourselves to do a risk assessment of every one of them. And we are building a static risk score based on everything from the probability of risk, that is, what are the permissions it's requesting, where is it asking to assert those permissions, what's the validity of the domain it's registered to? Is there a legitimate privacy policy? What's the frequency update and cadence of release? How many users are using it? Has it ever been promoted on Google's web store? How many star ratings? So all of a sudden you have this concept of what the risk posture of each extension is. Now when you do an inventory across your entire browser fleet, not just the Island browser, but also the consumer browsers that have the Island extension.
They have the extension,
you can now see kind of what your risk exposure is. Then you go one step further and build a policy that says, I have a risk appetite of, let's say, 60%. And so any extension that falls above that line in risk, you can say, no, this is
block it.
You're not allowed to run it. But in the Cyberhaven incident, let's say that the extension right now comes in below that score, but for some reason, the latest update of that extension puts it above your risk appetite. You can say, no, pin it at the earlier version. Don't let the new one get installed.
Oh.
All future installations will fail because it falls above the line, and all existing installations will stay pinned at the lower one.
Which means you have to analyze all 230,000 plugins on a real-time basis in order to know whether the latest version is now outside of.
Twice a day, we are evaluating all deltas of new extensions that have been published.
Got it. And then is that available? So it's tied into the browser and the extension so that that data can then be used that way.
Exactly right. But what's more important too is understanding when and where certain extensions should be allowed to operate in your environment. There are some extensions that offer, great productivity improvements like, dictionary and spell check and thesaurus and grammar check, right?
Password
managers. So it may be perfectly fine for those to run when you're outside the business domain. You may not want a tool that is in essence a keylogger, right? It evaluates our keystrokes and tells us what version of there to use. That'd be perfect fine when you're in a Gmail, but may not be okay when you're in SAP or Salesforce. So not only allowing you to set a threshold that says above which risk I'm not comfortable assuming, but also to say I'm going to allow certain extensions, but not inside that business domain, but perfectly fine outside of it. So to your question earlier, can you allow customers to use one application like Island Browser for business applications, but still use consumers? Yes, you can. But most of our customers tell us that once they start using the Island Browser, they're getting more productivity improvement out of it. They're getting better ad blocking, better password management, better clipboard, all of those things that are helping them do their work as well as their personal life. And most customers tell us they never go back to Chrome, Edge, or Safari.
Interesting. So that's a really interesting point is, if I use the enterprise browser for work, can I then use it at home?
So it's not a consumer browser.
Okay.
But if you're in the world like we are today, where a knowledge worker has one machine, he carries it to work and back to home, there's absolutely no problem with him using it for personal use as well. In fact, we enable a BYOD workforce to allow you to say, take whatever machine you want, install the Island browser on it. We will create this safe space for you to engage with business applications and business data, but still allow you to do your personal work as well in a safe way. Now, this also means that the auditing, the logging capability that we're performing is and can be very different. When you're in a business application, fully audited, you have no right to privacy. We're going to monitor things like keystrokes, screenshots, full session recording if you want. But that same user has to know that when they bounce out of that business domain into personal email, personal banking, even an Amazon shopping cart, they need to know that we're not monitoring that. In fact, that's fully anonymized. We don't want to know the username. We don't want to know the credentials. We don't want to get screenshots of their bank account. So it's a highly customizable auditing philosophy that says audit what you need to in the business world, but guarantee privacy in the non-business world.
And that's why I asked the question, because so many of us are trying to find the better browser. I'll leave it at that, right? I've tested different browsers. I love DuckDuck. It was DuckDuckGo's search engine, and then there was I can't remember what it was called, but it was a browser. But it's always behind, right? It's a privacy protecting browser, but it's always behind. It doesn't work on certain sites. And it's like, even as a consumer, I would love a better browser, right? And that's why I asked, because I'm like, ooh, if you could use the Island browser in a consumer use case, but if you're a business client, you do potentially have that option as long as you're running on the same machine.
Absolutely.
And most of my machines are dual purpose anyways, but yeah, that's interesting to know.
Most of our customers are knowledge workers, but the biggest use case we have, third-party contractors, BPOs, right? The engaged user where they need to use their machine for business use, but it may be on multiple contracts, right? So I'm a consultant working on one project. I need to be able to access the business uses or use cases for that contract, but tomorrow I might be on a different contract, right? I don't want to swap out that laptop for another laptop. So if I can maintain consistency with one build of hardware that I get to choose, when I signed on an Island, they said, go buy whatever machine you want. And we're going to send you an email inviting me to the Okta domain. And I did. I installed Island on my own Mac. And the minute I logged in, I had my entire Island workspace. No more shipping laptops, no more refreshing laptops at a corporate expense, so OpEx can come down. But more importantly, if there were a catastrophic failure, like some some event that kicked my machine or multiple machines offline, how easily could I get back online quickly? Do I have to wait till they ship me a new laptop? Do they have to do a truck roll where they have to refresh or reimage my machine?
Right.
Do they have to spin up a VDI for me to get access to corporate resources?
Right.
What if I could just take my iPad or go to Best Buy and get a $300 Chromebook?
Right.
Right. Install
Or
Island?
go to the Apple store and grab another MacBook.
That's exactly right. So we give our users the freedom to choose what they want to enable a BYOD workforce and still guarantee both better data protection, credential protection, which was the initial conversation,
Right.
And a better user experience.
Sounds amazing.
I think so.
Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
Thanks very much.
If you want to learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/islandbh. For all your Black Hat 2025 coverage, please visit securityweekly.com/BlackHat. Thank you again, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
Stay tuned. We have more interviews coming from Black Hat 2025.
Welcome to BlackHat 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRiskTV Studio in Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm your host, Jackie McGuire, and I'm joined today by Seemant Sehgal. He is the founder of BreachLock. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jackie.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about something that I think is probably going to trigger a lot of people who work in SOCs today. It's something that I complain about pretty often, which is alert fatigue, and the fact that we've all got 10,000 untriaged alerts in our SIM, and a decent chunk of those say that they're critical based on how we have or have not set up our SIM. So is this something that you see a lot?
Yeah, I do see a lot, and of course I come from a financial background, right? Yeah. Before I started BreachLock, I was heading the cybersecurity assessment wing for ING Bank in Europe.
And finance is crazy, right? Because you have, not only is it the crown jewels or actual money, but it's 24 hours. Like banks run 24 hours, so you can't just shut the network down to upgrade
Absolutely.
something.
And the adversaries are following the sun, so you have to do, right? There's no option to put your guard down. And, I've always been a big fan of both offense and defense. And that's also what I promoted at the bank. I think people get too much focused on the defense, and that's where the alert fatigue comes from. Not that that's bad, but by the end of the day, you don't want to have like a needle in a haystack problem and then blame your analysts that they didn't find something there. So I think it's also a proactive approach that helps, and that's something that I've promoted. And that's why these days I like to talk about vulnerability fatigue and not just alert fatigue.
Yeah, so what was really the onus that caused you to say, I need to start a company to solve this problem?
Right, pretty much the same, right? So when I looked at the investments that the corporates were making, I was buying a lot. I was on the buyer's shoes, reporting directly into the group CISO. So I was part of the CISO's office. All country CISOs were my peers. So I was, having a say in the budget and what they buy. I was doing a lot of proof of values for the bank and kind of putting my stamp, hey, this is ready to go. We can deploy it. So it all boiled down to too much focus on defense, like I said, and not the proactive side of security, meaning we don't want to wait for an incident to happen to tell us what's broken. Why don't we have a look and find out proactively what's broken so that we can fix it? And, that led me to believe that there's more innovation that needs to be done in offensive security. And, that's what BreachLock's all about. We're probably the most complete offensive security solution that's available on the market today.
Yeah, and so you have the technique that you use is adversarial exposure validation, right? So how does this work? So I've got all of these alerts in front of me. How does this help me figure out which ones actually matter?
Right. So that's it. It's about fixing what matters, right? So in the bank, I learned that there's like a ton of vulnerabilities. We used to get PowerPoint decks, red, yellow, green, and nothing really moved each month. And when we did a red team, which was more an ecosystem hack than a vulnerability view of the world, meaning you focus on people, process, technology, and go from there, it showed a complete different picture that a lot could be breached, where you could have like 3 critical vulnerabilities sitting for 3 months and nobody gave a damn about it. Right?
Well, we also see that companies will do, a pen test or a red team or something like that, but then they haven't allocated the resources to resolve whatever comes up from that.
Absolutely.
From that test. And
You're absolutely right, Jackie. And the reason I think for that is that, again, the fatigue side of things, right? Because you get a report with a ton of vulnerabilities. So what we've done with this new product, it's an agentic solution. So it's built off generative AI. A lot is happening in that space, as you know, so we are on the forefront of that from an offensive security perspective. And what we really do there is we kind of, put all the vulnerability intelligence. First, we find it very fast, thanks to Gen AI now, with all the feeds that we can corroborate. We've very beautifully crafted an agentic solution that writes checks for CVEs as they're published, and this is huge. So, with the vulnerability scanning world, you are usually seeing the top players competing, hey, I release this check in 24 hours, 48 hours. So we are doing it near real time now. Again, because of the generative AI innovation that's happening all around us. And from there, when we get the vulnerabilities, we stack them all up from an attacker's perspective and sort of give you an attack tree view, right? Or a kill chain view. So if I'm an attacker, here's what
what the actual realistic 2 or 3 kill chains would look like that I could use in this
Absolutely.
environment.
This is how I would get to the crown jewel, right? And once you see that in action and you either see a green or a red being it's a red flag, like, yeah, somebody can get to my crown jewel, be it an Active Directory or be it, a Drupal or whatever, simplest thing possible, but it still gives the attacker a foothold on your internal infrastructure. Then it starts to move, because then the remediators start to get more excited about, hey, so now that I am able to visualize this skill chain, which of the steps or vulnerabilities or CVEs or CWEs do I need to patch to break the whole kill chain, right? So you get a two-way motivation, one from the management, because of course they're worried that something wrong can happen, and also the system administrators or the DevOps engineers get much more excited that they could actually patch something that works. And if you give them a laundry list of vulnerabilities that they need to fix, then of course there's many bottlenecks and they don't get the approvals with the DTAP. So it's not only the admins to blame, it's also the state of the technology we have. You can't just throw patches at systems, because you need to have business to be able to live the security side of it, right? So I know, coming from a bank, you have to follow the DTAP cycles. You can't just patch left, right, and center. And whenever we had the critical, we get the bypasses for all of that, and rightly so, right? So I think with the AV concept, you're able to see the kill chain in action. So you know exactly which vulnerability matters, and then you fix that. So fix what matters.
Yeah. Well, and I also, I talk to CISOs a lot, and they have a really hard time kind of talking to their executive peers about what they're doing, about why it matters, about the potential fallout. So I imagine when you can take, because generally it's this trade-off between, well, we have cyber risk insurance and the chance of a breach is this percent. The cost of the breach is, $10 million. And if there's only a 15% chance, it's less money to, And I think with this, if you can say, no, there is a demonstrable path to critically sensitive information that we have to close, it's not theoretical risk, right? It's real world risk that has to be addressed, and that you can actually tie to enterprise value or enterprise risk. Because I always say, as a CISO, if you go in and you say, all right, CEO, we have operational risk, they're like, I don't care. Like, well, this operational risk translates to potentially losing $5 million a day in revenue if we're crippled, then they start to care.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you can tie that to the crown jewel. That's why the flags are really important. So in a AV concept, you start from objectives and then you go to the final crown jewel, right? So the AI is able to come up with the context of the target, right? So let's say if I enter a target abcbank.com, then the AI already knows that this is a bank. So the first step is to look at the threat intel that's relevant to that sector, and then pick the objectives based on that, and that's how the whole attack is done. And it's completely with human out of the chain. And I'm not a propagator of pen testing or red teaming needs to be done fully automated, so I'm not saying that. However, what we've seen is with this product that we've launched, we've got a lot of traction with internal teams. So the right way to put this is for enterprise internal offensive security teams. They see this as a mechanism to scale their own efforts, so they can probably focus on fixing stuff, and then the machines can find most of the things at scale.
Yeah, I think you're always going to need a human for pen testing, because you have 95% of it is known variables and things like that. But in security, shout out my couple friends who got caught in a fire escape stairwell trying to sneak into a party a couple days ago. In security, we tend to be a little bit mischievous, and we tend to be able to find the very indirect paths into things. So because adversaries, yes, they are using a lot of automation, but they also still have humans kind of actively trying to find the sneaky things. So, but to your point, if there are known variables that you can address, that frees up your team for more time for the actual fun stuff. Because those are the fun red teaming activities, right?
And I get into this discussion all the time because, at BreachLock, we do both. So we have the human-led part that uses technology in-house. So that's more for enterprises that want to have an external pair of eyes looking at their infrastructure, their applications, whether it's for compliance reasons or just an extra pair of eyes, independent view. But we also have these platform or tools that are used by internal teams. So we do both. So I get this question very often, can it be really automated? And I always respond by saying it's not an either or.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, either you would have automated or you need humans. It's both.
Yeah.
And we need to stop this discussion and just focus on the scalability benefits of the technology and just end it with saying like, no, humans will be in the loop and they need to be in the loop because that's what the business demands. And, that's the same option available, right? You can't just let it on machines to...
It's not microwave or stove. Sometimes you need both, right?
That's a good way to put it.
Some things don't go in the microwave.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So is there a typical profile for a customer? Are you generally mid-market? Are you larger enterprises? Does it kind of span the spectrum? Like, what does your typical customer look like?
So it's all the way from Fortune 500 to mid-enterprise clients, mostly software, financial, healthcare. These are the three sectors that we... Yeah, like you would imagine. We also have like critical sectors like energy and some of the biggest companies, manufacturing. I can name it. Like pen testing is everybody's problem, right? You have to know where you
ICS is one of my favorite areas. Like I always like the target breach that happened through their air conditioning control system.
That's one of my favorite ones also.
I used to my husband owned a mechanical contractor, and he's a mechanical engineer, and so I ended up having to learn how to write the industrial automation. So when the target breach happened, I was like, I know BACnet, I know these controls.
Yeah, and to your point, a lot of OT clients also reach out to us, and rightly so. So I really love the fact that the awareness is rising, also that they want to do it more continuous and not just like a once a year thing.
Not just check the box.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where technology can help, right? Because then you can have humans do, let's say, a couple of times a year or quarterly if you have the budget. And for the rest, why leave it out? Just test it with, the existing parameters. And I think generative AI is really pushing the bar there, right? Because it's a self-learning mechanism, and the more you teach it, the more it performs better, right? So that's...
Does that cause... So I think I've noticed a real sentiment change from last year to this year with security teams, and that last year it was like, block everything, we can't let this in, and this year it's like, all right, I keep saying this, the horse is out of the barn. Like, we're not going to put these horses back in the barn. Let's just figure out how to contain the fallout. So I imagine you get at least some pushback from CISOs around using AI, because with agents, with people, there's at least some delay in communication, and then there's somebody to fire if things go sideways. Like, who do you fire if an agent does things instantaneously that are really bad? So how do you address those concerns? Like, what are you hearing with regard to AI concerns from CISOs, and then how do you address those?
Very, very relevant question. So I'm glad you asked that, Jackie. So I'll address two sides of it, right? So first, let's talk about BreachLock, and then we'll talk about the industry.
In general,
because I'm a practitioner, right? So I have to give you that answer. So from BreachLock perspective, obviously we saw that coming, right? And what we built is we've built an AI transparency module. Now, I'm not saying that's the answer to all the questions we have with AI autonomy, but it's a start, right? Yeah. So exactly, you create the transparency for the CISO, and you're able to see, like, for example, we have like 18 agents. Then they're able to see what each agent is doing, what data it's picking. We only take the metadata and share it with AI, so it's not your infrastructure or your application info going, because, I mean, the AI doesn't need to know that. It just needs to know what the target is, and it doesn't need to know who the target is, right? Yeah. So you just take the metadata, and that's how it's processed. So we show, just like in a proxy vulnerability testing tool, you would see the GET request, the POST request. Similarly, whatever is going to the AI and coming back from the AI and the commands that we are injecting, like you said, with the agents interacting with each other, they're able to see everything. So that's one, transparency. Second is that just like in a Tesla, especially with auto-driving cars, in Europe, we have norms where the driver has to keep the hands on the steering, otherwise my beamer starts to beep. Right? So similarly, we have an assisted mode in our solution, which means that you can switch it on with a toggle button. So if it's a very risky test or a risky environment, then it'll ask you at each step. Right? And of course, it not ask you I'm going to run an Nmap scan, or I'm going to do XYZ. That's the normal, if you're worried about that, you've got other problems. If systems would break because of a port scan, then you have other problems. But more for the high risk actions like launching an exploit, or even, establishing a connection, even if it's passive, right? It would ask you. And then if you approve as a human, it goes further. If not, you choose what you do.
So I want to paraphrase this, because I think this is important. You said one is start with metadata. So one, I think, is privacy. So start by only collecting the actual data you need to do the work. 2 is transparency. And then 3, it sounds like control.
Yeah.
So give people the control they need to make decisions.
Absolutely. So that's the BreachLock side of things, right? Now my practitioner answer. So look, I've seen the movie before many times. I've heard all the buzzwords, seen the technology revolutions. The last one that I can draw a reference with, and I'm sure you would agree, is cloud, right? Yeah. So when I was at the bank, I mean, we were having discussions like, hey, should we build a private cloud? Should we stay in the data center? Look where we are now. Like I was speaking to a client that's, in a defense setting, right? And, we were discussing like, okay, on-prem solution. In the 10 minutes later in the conversation, it turned out they were in a multi-cloud environment. So that's how we refer to on-prem these days in a defense setting, right?
Yeah.
So I think similar things are going to happen with AI. It's totally fine. We're all discussing where the data is going. My prediction is like 5 years from now, or maybe even sooner, we are all going to just adapt and accept, for the right reason, not for the wrong reasons, a multi-model setup where 3 or 4 big players, just like you have now with AWS, GCP, and Azure, would be kind of the trusted partners for any large corporate to deal with, and all the SOC 2, ISO 27001, the data security standards would all be in place, and we would all have calmed down our emotions and be okay with it. The only thing that I don't have an answer to, I'm still looking for that, is that the autonomy angle for the AI when it kind of crosses the guardrails.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that. I think nobody does.
Well, you'll be a billionaire when you figure it out. So.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, from BreachLock perspective, I have to find the answers for my clients. I'm still looking for that. Yeah. But
we're going to bring you back in 2030 because you said 5 years from now we'll have you on again, and we'll replay this before your interview, and we'll see if you were right.
You bet.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I could probably talk to you for about an hour about this, Seemant. So thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the good conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. And if you'd like to find out more about BreachLock, please visit securityweekly.com/BreachLockBH. And for the rest of our coverage, you can visit securityweekly.com/BlackHat. I'm Jackie McGuire. We are in the Mandalay Bay at BlackHat 2025 in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we will be right back with lots more guests and great segments. Stay tuned. Welcome back to BlackHat 2025. We're live recording from the CyberRiskTV Studios at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm your host, Jackie McGuire, and joining me is Jawahar Sivasankaran. I imagine it's just as difficult for you to pronounce as when I go to Asia and they try to pronounce McGuire, but he's president at Cyware. Jawa, thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jackie.
Thanks. We are going to talk about a whole bunch of things today, but I thought it would be cool to start with can you tell us a little bit about your background? Because I always am fascinated by, we all come into security from very different areas. So tell a little bit about your background and then kind of what led you to Cyware and what's interesting right now.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, first of all. Super excited to have this chat. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for almost close to 3 decades, 27, 28 years now. Started in the 90s as a practitioner, then did engineering products, built products in the 2000s. Then moved into go-to-market leadership roles, customer success, sales, pre-sales, channel sales, marketing.
So you're technical, but you also like people.
Correct, absolutely. And I also like money, right? So that's part of this as well. So,
girl, same.
Yeah, there you go, right? So super excited to be part of Cyware. Bringing all of that experience. I joined Cyware almost close to a year now, 8-9 months now. I joined as a president, running all of the go-to-market functions. What led me to Cyware is the focus on cyber threat intelligence, because what I've seen over the course of the last 25 plus years in the industry is we chase the wrong things as an industry.
No.
We do. And for me, cyber threat intelligence is one area where there should be a lot more focus across the industry. The good news is we're seeing that just in terms of our interaction with customers, the wins we're having in the market, the innovation that we're bringing to the market. So super excited to be part of Cyware.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in cyber threat intelligence, I think is one of the areas, I agree, we don't spend enough time. And quite frankly, most of the really cool people in security I like to hang out with are doing something in and around cyber threat intelligence. So what's the state of that market right now? Like because we're having to really rapidly evolve to keep up with the rate of change within security and all of the associated areas. So what is the current state of cyber threat intelligence? What are we doing well and what are we not doing well?
What we're clearly seeing the market going is a unified strategy around cyber threat intelligence. What used to be, there was a feed part of it, Intel feed. Then you got a TIP platform, a threat intelligence platform. Then you got other pieces that made up the full story. That was done, I would say, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. That was the case.
And they're all spitting out alerts. And your SIM is just like brrrr.
Exactly. And you got analysts, either you're a SOC analyst or maybe you're a CTI analyst that's focused on CTI, and you're just bombarded with alerts coming in. And the alert fatigue is absolutely real. So part of this is how do we come up with a unified threat intelligence management approach, and which is really where we're going. Yeah. And we've taken some good steps towards that already this year. So earlier this year in February, we took our platform, integrated that with a market-leading threat intelligence feed. So great check for us. So if somebody is coming in, I want a feed plus a threat intelligence platform, unify that, we got that done. Then we introduced a couple of months after that in April, compromised credential management. That's integrated into the CTI fabric itself.
So basically like a have I been pwned on steroids, right?
Correct. And then last week, we've gotten some new innovation into the platform itself, and that includes domain sightings. Now we're talking about dark web, domain monitoring, all of those things getting integrated in. Sandboxing, malware detonation. It's not new. It's been around for a long time. But how about integrating that into the core
That's
CTI
not usually
program?
something I see security teams doing really well. I was just talking about sandboxing with a very large company, CISO, and I was like, why don't you just make it easier for your employees to sandbox and create more secure sandboxes if they're gonna FAFO with AI?
Yeah. The problem with that is sandboxing, it has always been an island of itself, right? Where it's seen like, hey, I got to take my malware sample, put it in a cloud, detonate it. Look at, that's the process that has not changed much. I think the key is integrate that with your cyber threat intelligence program and what you have, and that's the unified approach that we're driving.
So you're testing the right things in the right places more efficiently?
Correct.
All right, so we're going to have to talk about AI because, and I really think a year ago at BlackHat, most security people were like, I'm sick of hearing about AI. Like, that's never going to be in security. And it was like, just put policies in place to block everything, right? Now, 180, right? It's like everybody now security is like, okay, we realize that this is a thing. It's here to stay. And now we need to start working better with our internal customers in the enterprise to secure the things that they're trying to do. So as we're seeing this kind of rush to adapt agentic AI and, you know, all of the new AI solutions that security tools are rolling out, like, what do you think, what's your take on where it's okay to introduce AI and automation and agents, and where you really, really still need a human there to kind of have at least a hand on the wheel?
Yeah. Agentic AI is real as we as an industry, as we march towards this notion of autonomous SOC. So agents are going to play a very, very critical role. And I can tell that for sure in the cyber threat intelligence space. So what we've done is we've automated things. We've been automating things for the last 30 years in the market. We had poll scripts. If you go back 25 years, I've written poll scripts myself, right? Where you go tell a tool to go do a specific task. That's
or tuning
automation.
loops or
Correct. That's automation, right? You know, in terms of you go, hey, I've got this script, go run this, right? But where we are seeing that shift with agentic AI is you want to look at outcomes that you want to achieve, right? And rather than telling a tool to go run a script, how about telling your entire system to go contain a phishing attempt that is in, right? So now you're talking about multiple agents kicking in and doing the thing that they're supposed to do. And that is very much true in the CTI space. So if you look at CTI and where we are going with our quarterback AI strategy is automating a lot of things that would require a human in the loop. That could be parsing threat intelligence information, enrichment of that threat intelligence information, contextualization, right, which is super, super important. You get an IOC, what do you do with that without the right context to apply? And AI and an agentic AI or multi-agent fabric-based AI approach, driving that and eventually leading to better outcomes, because what we want to do is we want to automate some of the actioning pieces as well. But you have to do some of these front-end parts the right way so that you're not automating bad stuff that actually sets you back with your overall AI journey.
And I think the piece of so I will say, I'm a fan of agentic AI if for nothing else than I spent months ranting against LLMs. One, because their training data is absolute trash because it's mostly Western internet, which is absolute trash. And two, they're expensive, they're inefficient. They are arguably, for probabilistic and deterministic things, they're the least efficient thing to use. So I was actually really happy when agentic started to kind of outpace just plain LLMs in terms of how people were using them, because I think you can make them very prescriptive, you can contain them significantly better. One of the things that still concerns me though is now we've gone from, all right, let's automate context and, you know, gathering telemetry, to we're like, okay, now let's automate remediation. Let's actually take steps. So what do you need in place in terms of guardrails and things like that to turn all of this, you know, this threat intelligence and all of the context into something you can do something about without automating a disaster? Because patching, all of these things are really, really hairy anyway, right? Like we've seen people take down entire cloud networks with a bad patch. So, like, do you have as much stress about this as I do? Because it's one of the things I think about at night.
You've lived through as well, the IDS to IPS transition that happened in the early 2000s from intrusion detection to intrusion prevention, right? IDS is dead, long live IPS, and the whole point is automating the response itself. So coming to agentic AI and specific to CTI, cyber threat intelligence, the remediation part is going to be absolutely key, because that's where you're going to get the economic benefits as well as the efficiencies and the efficacy that you can drive.
They keep your CEO writing checks.
With an autonomous SOC model, right? But part of that is, as you move from, let's say, parsing, enrichment, contextualization, summarization, that's all threat intelligence data. But now you're taking action. A good example would be, hey, you're invoking playbooks automatically through an agent that can go invoke the right playbook. That could be the first step. Then you're automating the coding process itself of building a new playbook. If you look at it, hey, you don't want to jump into building a playbook, automating that right away without actually going through the first step of, you got to set up playbooks that's pre-written, but now your agentic AI or multi-agent fabric, it takes the decision to go invoke the right agent Once you got that, once you got a good experience with that, then you go low code, no code, and the Cyber Orchestrate platform exactly does that. Now you can go automatically create playbooks, newer playbooks, to take action based on what you've seen in the front end of the CTI lifecycle.
This is great in theory, but in order for this to work, I think model context protocol is the one of the kind of key things that we need, because one of the real issues I think with agentic AI and all of the different is that we had all these different companies spring up kind of simultaneously, offering kind of similar capabilities, but no real framework for how these things should talk to each other, you know, what types of data you should expect, what types of responses you should expect. So MCP seems to be kind of stepping up to fill that void. And I know Cyware just decided to has its own MCP. So can you tell us about your MCP server and kind of what role you think model context protocol is going to play in AI and security?
Yeah, hot off the press this week. Today's what, Thursday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
We officially announced our open source MCP server, so that a SOC analyst, CTI analyst that's working on an LLM platform can interact with the Cyware products, right? Starting with our CTIX, which is our threat intel exchange platform, and Cyber Orchestrate, which is our orchestration platform. Works with Cursor, works with cloud. We also anticipate supporting other LLMs as well in the near future, but absolutely MCP is the way to go, and we've open sourced it. It's available on GitHub as of Tuesday, as of day before, and we will be working towards standardization. And one of the things that we're super proud of what we've done, Cyware, is we standardize sticks and taxi. It's been around in the market for a long time, and one of the things, you know, I'm relatively new, but the team has built is put down the hammer and said, hey, we want to make sure that sticks and taxi is the way we're going to build our products, our architecture, the way we're going to go to market. So we have that rich history built to support an ecosystem standards-based approach, and we will continue to work on that as we look at agentic AI.
I think it's a perfect time to be playing around in open source. And so it's really interesting to me the kind of waves of innovation, and that most things on the internet were open source through the 90s. And then you had this massive venture capital and private equity boom through the dot-com boom, where they really only wanted to invest in defensible IP, which really meant stuff that doesn't talk to other stuff, right? Because like the best way to have defensible IP is to have a proprietary data format. And now we're kind of switching back to, with millennials coming into power in the enterprise, they really prefer collaboration and won't tolerate these proprietary formats and things like that. So I think it's really interesting to see how and AI is pushing us to adopt more, share more information, establish more standards, establish more collaboration between vendors. So it's great to see Cyware kind of leading the way with this open source MCP server, because I really think in the next couple years, that's where a majority of companies who have maybe historically not played nicely with other people, that's where they're going to have to go if they want to be able to maintain market share and customer share, because their customers are going to be looking for that collaborative kind of attitude.
Absolutely. I think the key differentiation is open source versus standards approach, right? Both are equally important. And where Cyware we thrive and we're super proud of is driving that standards. And we have
open source where everybody's got the same rule book, right?
Exactly. The standard space is super important. So we have our Collaborate platform through which we drive collective defense. A good chunk of that platform uses with ISACs. So we work with pretty much all of the major ISACs, and they're our customers, they're our partners. That's another thing that we're super proud of. And then speaking of standards, we drive taxi-based threat sharing, right? We don't want to push APIs. We don't want to push bulk updates. Those things can be done if there is a true exception. But when it comes to threat sharing, we drive taxi as a standard. So we're truly proud of that, and we want to continue to drive that in the agentic AI world.
And maybe just to finish up, I think since you're a practitioner and you've spent so long in, kind of deep in the trenches, if I'm a CISO and I don't have a 7-figure budget and I'm really resource constrained, where do I start? How do I start leveraging threat intelligence in a efficient way?
Yeah. You don't need a 7-figure budget to get started. Obviously, if you're big, there's definitely a need for that. The first thing I would say is take a unified approach. This is 2025. The 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, you had a threat intel feed, maybe an open source feed, maybe a commercial feed, maybe some advisories that you got, and you tried to see all of them as different islands. First thing is take a unified approach. Look at your CTI program as this life cycle that you're managing across all of these, not just tools, but also your processes so that you're getting a better outcome. The second one is look for standards-based approach, right? Take Staxi that we talk, right? And something that you can bank on so that there's integrations that you can do with other tools, because you're not going to get one vendor that can do it all.
Right.
And even if you have a CTI vendor, a lead CTI vendor like Cyware, we still do 400 integrations with firewall players, with SIM players, with all of those others, right? Yeah. So make sure you're looking for somebody that's doing that.
It plays nicely with others.
Exactly. So that's the second part. And then the third one is look for quick wins, I would say, right? Especially as you're looking at Agentic AI. So you've got human in the loop, right? And as you're transforming that, right, you got AI in the loop, that's where you're starting. Then you got human in the loop. And then as you move towards more of the agentic full-on SOC, right, as you're driving it, autonomous SOC with Agentic AI takes over more of the actions, especially the repetitive tasks, right? It's not automation. We're truly talking about an Agentic AI approach here, and take that as a phased approach. So those are the things I would say, right? Take a comprehensive view of your CTI program, look for standards-based approach, and then leverage AI and look for those small wins as you scale yourself. And then in 18, 24 months, you look back, you'd have gained a lot of momentum and progress.
Awesome. That's great advice. Jawa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we could have gone quite a bit longer. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but where can everybody find you? You have a booth, I assume, in the hall?
We do have a booth in the hall. We do have a capture the flag exercise as well, a challenge that people can take and win a challenge coin, a medal. Some exciting stuff happening in the booth. Please visit us. We're here all day. And go to cybr.com, and my information should be available as well. If there's anything that we can help with CTI, we're here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Appreciate it.
All right. Stay tuned. If you'd like to learn more about Cyware, please visit securityweekly.com/CywareBH. And for the rest of our 2025 Black Hat coverage, you can visit securityweekly.com/BlackHat. We are going to be back live with great interviews and a bunch of new guests, so please stay tuned. I'm Jackie McGuire. We'll be right back from the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada for Black Hat 2025.
Hello.
Don't you love live TV? Because you just never know what's going to happen, and you're not going to know, unfortunately, because you're not here. But welcome to BlackHat 2025 again with me. We're still here. We're still recording live from the CyberRiskTV Studio in the Mandalay Bay Hotel, which is a famous hotel in Las Vegas. I'm Doug White, and this time joining me for an interview is Michael Callahan, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Salt Security.
Yes.
Hi, Michael. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know. It's exciting. I was really pleased to see that you were on my list because some of the stuff you're doing is very interesting to me.
Some of it, not all of it, just some of it. Thanks. That's great.
Well, there was that thing you guys did last year, but no.
Yeah, that one thing.
Yeah, it was bad.
Well, so let's talk about the stuff you think's interesting.
No, okay. So, I mean, the term Agentic AI came up to me. I mean, this was in your notes. And I like that term so much, but I know some people hate it, but I like it because it sounds so evil.
It does.
You know, it's like Agentic AI. You know, it's like, yes, Mr. Bond.
Sounds like Galactic or something with Star Wars. Yes,
yeah,
it does sound like
Agentic
James
AI,
Bondish.
Mr.
I like
Bond.
that.
Yes,
yeah. That's what we're doing. Our whole theme this year is going to be around James Bond. So
well, it sounds like that.
And...
It's actually like virtual James Bond at a like micro level.
Yes.
Because when I started reading this thing, I got actually really, really scared.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you should be scared too, because as I started, I had not thought about, I've thought a lot about supply chain, let me tell you. I've been thinking about supply chain problems since like 1986, because I was like, that guy's not a great coder. You know, he sends me code modules for this code. I'm the systems analyst. His code sucks. I hate it. But if he slips it by me, So there was an early chip supply chain problem. Today, of course, this has become crazy.
It's crazy.
And when I started reading this stuff, I had not thought about what you guys were working on, where we now have commonality across this agentic AI stuff, which means that these agents, I get why you would want that.
Yeah, no, it's a super bit, like it's the productivity, the improvements to business, the value is crazy. It's way out there. The risk is, it's like 100x of what it was before. And the way that I've explained how I think about it, you have this agent, and just think you have just this one agent, and you say, how's my business doing? Right? You just ask the agent that. Simple question. Well, before, you would have to go like almost individually to different data sources. You might go to the internet. You might go to your Salesforce. You might go to your business, whatever.
Stack
business
Overflow.
Whatever. You'd go to like whatever could you could even go to like, how am I perceived in the media, right? Like because that's part of like how your business is doing. Right. But so there could be you too. Like you could have an agent that does this. And what happens now is, so you would have to do that individually. Now this agent talks to, what goes along with Agentic AI is this MCP server, right? So it kind of sits in the middle as a broker. The key thing, at least for us and what we think for security in general, is all of this communication is done through APIs. So when you say, hey, I'd like to know, like, what do people think about me in the press, or how's my business doing? That it sends an API call to an MCP server, which then goes to all of the different data sources. So you could imagine like this just explosion of like API traffic that goes and finds something and then brings it back and then gives you an answer. The risk there is ridiculous. So people setting up like shadow MCP servers, or the data may be getting pulled back that shouldn't, right? So maybe you say, like, you ask that and it pulls back some like user account or some credit card information or something, and it goes back to the agent. All of that is API traffic, and all of it are areas of risk. It's an enormous issue, and that's just one agent. Imagine if
absolutely.
Hey, I want to deploy 50 agents to help my business.
This is what got me scared, because I wasn't familiar with model context protocol. I wasn't. I wasn't. I didn't know the term until I started reading your notes, and I know I had to do some reading, because I was like, okay, I'm not 100% on this. I didn't know what this thing was, and I understand the concept, but this works in all directions. Because this is a standardization, right? So the model context protocol means that my agent can talk to your agent, can talk to their agents over there, and that all flows through this MCP server.
That's right.
And that acts as a sort of central clearinghouse with a standardized language. So now,
because it's a protocol. That's the PM
so
protocol.
My agent may speak my language, but they go down to this central hub, and everybody chatters, and they may dispatch other agents, often 100,000 directions.
So it's like that. There was years ago, I don't know if everybody remembers it, but there was this, I remember this commercial was just brilliant, where it was like, I told one friend and they told one friend, and it just goes like crazy. That's exactly what's happening here. That MCP server, it really is it's an API broker, but it's going to who knows, dozens, hundreds, possibly thousands of sources, and then bringing back all that information, and it's all risky, right? It's all like maybe the intent is almost always good, unless you're a bad guy kind of starting it all. The intent's almost always good, but what comes back, it could have all kinds of sensitive information.
Well, yeah, the analogy I used for it, I told two people, and you told. I have another one. It's an old cartoon. I could not remember. I'm gonna have to get an AI to tell me which cartoon it is. But like the judge says guilty, and all the reporters come running out of the courtroom and run into the phone booth and all the boxes. And of course, half of you don't even know what a phone booth is. But the whole phone booth falls over because they've all run in there to make quick calls.
Yeah.
And then all that goes to the media. And then all the media outlets start printing stories about it, and one's saying guilty, one's saying not guilty, one's saying lies, and one's saying something completely different. And so and the other analogy I would bring up to ask you if you think this is legit is DNS poisoning, because this is like that, right?
Well, because you have that central point.
That's what I mean. There's this place, and there's a ton of small traffic going there, and then it dispatches in all kinds of directions. And if that one central point was compromised, really, really bad things would happen.
Well, and that's where what we're seeing. Is what's someone going to attack? They're going to attack where they can be the most efficient. Well, these MCP servers, they have very little security around them, and what's happening is people are spinning these up. So internally, people might spin them up, and they're kind of called shadow MCP servers. We have the same thing with shadow APIs, but they can spin up shadow MCP servers. Other people could be spinning these up. Like you could spin one up that's for a very popular application, and people think it's legitimate, and so you just have your agent call that MCP server, but it's not legitimate, and now you're sharing all this information back, and it's chaos is what it is.
So while technically not the same, it's a lot like DNS poisoning.
Yeah.
Because that may. I'm sorry. I'm just using you as a way for me to make better lectures.
That's right.
But I mean, if I can give an analogy of that to students, that would be one way I would talk about it, because they would immediately understand. If I said DNS poisoning, a lot of my students would go, "Oh, I know what that means," and it would be bad, right? Because they probably may have experienced it. And if you type in, "I want to go to Babcock High School," and BabcockHighSchool.com actually redirects you to a graphic pornography site, that's middle school prank 101 kind of stuff with DNS poisoning on a very local basis.
It's very similar. And I think what's also like one of the things that it's kind of mind blowing, at least to me, I think, is you have to have some sort of control over the data that's moving between the agent, the MCP server, the data source, whatever. You have to have some kind of control to know, am I in policy or not? Because that LLM, it's not like a goldfish, right? Goldfish have no memory, right? Or short memory. The LLM, if you were to say, hey, what is, can you find Doug's compensation, right? It goes and it brings you that back. But then what if someone else asked it? It can't forget it, right? It would be able to give it to you, right? So the issue is like all of that data that's moving all over, it's all encompassed in an API, but it's all very sensitive data, and you've got to have some kind of control over it. And right now, it reminds me of like evidence security for 20 plus years. In the early days, it's exactly like it was before, where the business is moving faster than security. And there were some issues that happened in the last 10, 15, 20 years because of that. This, I feel, is even way worse because of the speed, right? Like it's ridiculous how fast it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a good question. So if someone's a CISO, and most of us, like you said, we worked in the security field. We've all been there where the CEO or somebody calls us and says, I want this, I want it rolled out by Friday, we're getting it, this is going to be part of our new corporate image. So when the CEO calls down and says, we are rolling out Agentic AI and these MCP servers and all this whole full-featured set to vastly improve our business model, and it's going in place next month, what's the CISO supposed, what's your first move? Quit?
Yeah, right. I mean, that may be long run the better answer, but it's like, I mean, the answer should always be, I think, is yes. Now let's figure it out, right? And then be able to present the risks, right? So to say, hey, we could do this, but understand we will have we will be opening ourselves up to risk, and it could be risks of not being compliant. We may be like not compliant with whatever industry regulation we may be part of, and maybe that's acceptable risk. Or maybe there's risk with, if we do this, we are going to have, we're going to open ourselves up to attack because we can do like an API world, it's like a Ebola attack, right? Like we will be open to that, we'll have no protection on it. Should we do it or not? What I'd like to see is that CISOs more more educated on this so they can present the risks, and then you can just make a decision. You can make it, it's a risk decision more than like a yes/no decision. It's risk-based. But I think in this area, like we're talking with a lot of people now, and they're looking to us like, help us understand what to do. And like we'll show people like, here, this is what your environment looks like, and we found 4 MCP servers. And their eyes will be like, oh, thank God, thank you. Like we had no idea. And that is like tip of the iceberg stuff of what's going on. But right now I think people are at the point where they just want to know just help me a little bit. Help me figure out what I have. Just tell me what I have. And maybe if there's any sort of like policy issues before even like what's the big risk to the business. I think that happens a lot with any kind of new technology is just help me understand it first. And that's where we are. And as we talk with people, they're like, okay, that's good. That gives us at least something to go on.
Well, I started thinking of a term for what I wanted to ask you next last night, and I'm calling it the radioactive supply chain, because I was thinking about radioactive elements emit particles, right? They're just constantly spitting these particles out, and that's how you detect radioactive material. And one of my grave concerns about supply chain stuff in general is all these APIs. We build this big stack, and now each layer of this stack is an API referring to an API referring to an API, but each of these APIs can in turn refer to other APIs that are embedded in that API that are just being thrown off. Well, each of these layers and all of these sub-layers and these branches and leaves and whatever could be emitting, I'm using a radioactive term, emitting agentic AI to gather information using this model. How does somebody get a grasp of my greatest fear? Is this giant stack of code, and how do I pull that in and manage it? Yeah,
so we struggled with that too, because you want to be able to understand it but communicate it, and what we came up with was this concept of an API fabric. So what you just talked about, the radioactive particles being dispersed, it would, in this analogy, it would create a fabric, right? So every organization has a fabric. Some of it's more dense, some of it's less, but every organization has it, and that fabric is made up of all of these little API communications. So you want to be able to say, in my fabric, where are my APIs? Do I have any? Are they zombie? Are they shadow? People move really fast, so sometimes they just leave things out there unintentionally, right? It's not like they put it out there so that you can be breached. But where are they? And if they are zombie or shadow, let's shut them off. So you have this fabric. You're looking at where do I have APIs? But then, are there places where I'm in or out of policy? You've got to know that as well. And then ultimately, am I being attacked somewhere? So I think like in your example of the radioactivity, it's a great visual because you could see that like those particles being split up
pulsing
everywhere, and you want to know where they are. And so the thing you want to do, because like the APIs, it's what powers the agents. That's it. If you didn't have the APIs, the agents wouldn't do anything. They need that. So as you're pushing all these points out, you just want to know. You just want to know about them. You want to know where they are. You want to know are they doing something right.
How sparkly is your fabric?
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, it's like
that's right.
Because I mean, I was scared of API before I even started thinking about agentic AI. In APIs. And the more I read about this, the more frightened I got, because like I said, I was scared of supply chain in 1986. I'm way more scared of it today because now it's completely beyond my control. Now I don't just have to say John added a module. I have to say, oh wow, the AI is adding modules, the employees are adding modules.
And nobody can keep that straight. Like there's no way you can keep all that in your head. Like, oh yeah, I remember this person or this agent's supposed to talk to this one or that one. Oh, I should put a control here. There's no way that anybody can keep that
just
straight.
As an exercise for a class I was putting together, so it's total dev. I just was like, I'm gonna try to write an SBOM for this.
Okay.
It was impossible. I mean, just when I started looking at, I added my template for Python, and I've got all these modules, and I added these libraries and those libraries and these pips, and I was like, okay, now I got to go to each one of those things, and there weren't that many. I mean, compared to like real productive stuff, production stuff, and even then, I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna open this one. I'm gonna go, oh wait, there's 12 libraries listed there. And now I need to go to each one of those 12 libraries. Before I even got through the first few I had listed, I had this huge list of things, and it was terrifying.
It's exactly what's happening with all of these AI agents. They're creating more and more and more, and as you give them the permission to do things autonomously, then you really don't know, right? Then because you didn't anticipate it, it's kind of learning or thinking, right? And it's doing something you didn't plan for it to do. you've got to be able to understand, like we keep coming back to, like, of all the different scenarios where we come back to these three like pieces of, you've got to know where they are. You have to know if they're adhering or out of policy, because you have to know where to focus. Because if you, like, use your example you just said, or the radioactive example, if you've got 5,000 points out there, you can't start at one and then like figure out like, okay, that one's okay, that one's okay, that's okay. It's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, right? You never end.
And it may change immediately.
It totally could. So
I got through the first 5 and the first two
yeah,
changed
so you've
already.
got to have some way to say like, oh, these are the ones that are really risky or not, and look at those, and then be able to see like the last piece of it is anything being attacked? Because the way that attacks happen, that will happen now, it's not like it's not like someone sends you an email and you click on an attachment anymore.
Right.
Like these type of attacks, they go through most security solutions undetected because they look legitimate, right? Like if you say, hey, give me someone's passport information because I'm checking it for a flight, it's going to look legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, okay, give me someone's passport information, and you change their name because their name's like a unique, some sort of identifier, and you change it by one character, it still looks legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Why not, right? You gave me this one, why can't you give me the next one in line, and the next one, and the next one, and that's how the breach happens. Nobody can keep all that stuff straight.
And it's so fast, it's beyond
yeah,
comprehension.
it speeds right past you.
That's okay. Now I'm scared, so I'll have something to worry about. I'll have something to worry about the rest of the time I'm here.
Some water.
I'm just going to put my retirement accounts on double zeros on the roulette wheel because it's all over anyway. Well, thank you, Michael Callahan, for joining us today. If you want to find out more about SALT security, and you should, I think, please visit securityweekly.com/saltbh. For all the rest of our BlackHat 2025 coverage by CyberRisk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/BlackHat. Thank you, Michael. It was great being here. The rest of you stick around because we'll be back with another interview and a wrap up and all kinds of fun things here in sunny Las Vegas, where I think it's about a balmy 102 degrees right now. So it's lovely. See ya.
Welcome back to BlackHat 2025. It's our last interview. It's day 3. We're recording live from the CyberRiskTV Studio here at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. Our last, but not our least interview. I'm your host, Matt Alderman, and joining me for this final interview of BlackHat is Matt Muller. He's the field CISO at Tynes. Welcome, Matt.
It's good to be here.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, I know. It's been a little while.
It has been a little while. I have a little history with Tynes. So we're going to talk about the traditional SOC.
Right.
What I used to, it's almost like the advanced SOC, right? If we go back in history, go back 20 some years, we had the old legacy SOC SIM, right? And I was saying this before, I always said SIM wasn't built for security, it was built for compliance. And I used to have this argument with Anton Chavakin and others, but it was trying to validate certain compliance checks. And so we reinvented the security operations centers in the 12, 13, 14, 15 time frame. We saw the expansion of security orchestration platforms, the SOAR platforms, and we saw this huge consolidation of the SOAR platforms being bought by the SIM vendors and getting integrated together. And here we are, and the SOC's still broken.
It really is. And if you think about sort of, the history and the inspirations almost that the SOC came from, I look at, the NOC, obviously,
yes.
and also the IT service desk, right? Like the security operations center itself, even though it's not a young function, is still younger than a lot of these other teams, right? And so, thinking about, for example, in the IT world, if you have a laptop and the screen breaks, you go fix that screen, right? But it only fixes that one laptop. You have one ticket. You have one person that needs to go solve that ticket end to end with a particular workflow, and then you hand it back, right? It doesn't tell you anything else about other laptops. Fixing that one screen doesn't actually fix a class of laptop screens.
Right.
There's no, malicious adversary whose intent you have to sort of guess,
What's
right?
to break the screen.
Yeah, it's either broken or it's not broken, right? And if you think about how the traditional SOC operates, it's inspired by a lot of that model, whether people realize that or not, right? And so you think about a junior analyst gets a ticket, they solve that one ticket, they hand it off. We're not thinking about solving classes of problems in the traditional SOC model. And so to me, it's kind of no wonder that we're still seeing the same problems, right? And still seeing the same issues of burnout and alert fatigue, which I'm fatigued of hearing the term alert fatigue at this point.
Yeah.
But again, no matter what all the stuff we've done to address these issues, I think have been band-aids, right? Because it doesn't really reimagine why we're operating this way.
So how do we reinvent the SOC? Like, I really like to think about these long-term, like strategic kind of discussions, right? Which is, we've been doing it so long for a certain way, we're not making any progress. Like, how do you reinvent it? Like, how do you literally flip it on its head, right? And some vendors in the space will be like, oh, you can't do that, right? But I'm like, no, you can. Now, I'll give you a really good example, just a quick one. In 2015, when I was running strategy at Tenable, I wrote a thesis that said, look, in a future world, I don't own the network, I don't own the device, everything's in the cloud, everything's an application front end through a browser. What do you scan when you don't own a network, right? It was a crazy hypothesis at the time. It's now true. And the pandemic only sped it up, right? So what do we do? Like, how do we hypothesize the future of the SOC, and how do we start to rebuild it in a new, better way?
I think the first thing is looking at the role of the junior analyst. There's been a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about, will AI replace all of our junior analysts? I think the first response is, okay, well, if you replace all your junior analysts, where do your senior analysts come from, first of all?
Right.
But if you actually think about what junior analysts do today, we ask them to make the most decisions out of anybody in the security operations center because they're doing all the triage. But then they don't get to see the consequences of those decisions because it gets escalated to tier 2 or tier 3 to actually respond and do the work. And that kind of makes sense, right? You need some expertise when it comes to actually doing incident response. But I think the first thing we need to reimagine is, what would it look like to empower a junior security analyst to take an alert as far as they possibly could? And it might look different for different analysts, right? And you find the ones that can take it further and further and further. Those are the ones who are becoming your tier 2 and tier 3 folks. Right. But the tooling that we give those people is incredibly important, right? Because you want those junior analysts to feel comfortable and feel empowered to go make decisions and go take actions, and also not have the SOC manager sort of worried in the back of their mind, like, are they gonna, delete production? Are they gonna lock the CEO to their email? That sort of thing.
Well, so you bring up a very good point. Part of this is, do we just get rid of the tiers, right? So you just said it. I got a tier 1, a tier 2, tier 3. I'm escalating up. Okay. well, is that really the right model? Maybe we don't have tiers. Maybe it's flat, or maybe we only have 2 tiers, right? Because here's what AI is going to do for us, right? It is going to empower less senior people with capabilities to advance very, very quickly. Right. Whether we truly have a skill gap in the industry or not, and there's a big debate on that, and we talk about that a lot on different podcasts, but let's assume that we partially do. AI will enable those folks to move up and mature faster. Maybe I don't need to hire other junior analysts, and maybe the whole tiering structure of the SOC is partially broken. Maybe it's obsolete in the new world.
I tend to agree. And, I think models that we're seeing folks experiment with more that are being really successful, honestly, is take your senior folks, let them do something, just a really deep dive, right? Maybe it's cloud security. Figure out how you want to do incident response in the cloud. Have them build some sort of automations or workflows or AI prompts that replicate that work, and then empower the junior analysts to go use those workflows.
Yeah, so they almost become like research people.
Right.
Right? So you take your most senior people with your best skill set, they research how to respond to certain types of attacks, build a set of agentic AI capabilities and an agent that you now empower the junior people to be able to execute. And guess what? I don't need to escalate it to the senior folks. So the senior folks become these almost like researchers in that world, right?
Yeah, and I mean, these folks love it, right? Because every security person I know is incredibly curious. They love learning, they love tinkering. And you tell them, hey, guess what? Your job is to now go tinker with AWS and just become an expert in AWS. Once you've done that, guess what? You're no longer the AWS person. You're not gonna, be stuck being the only person who can answer AWS questions. You can now move on. Go learn GCP, go learn Azure, right? And then replicate everything that you've been doing. So to me, that feels like a really powerful way to apply both, AI, as a co-pilot, AI as an agent, or even, blend it with traditional automation, right? Where you need to have deterministic guardrails. And make sure that, again, the junior folks can feel confident pushing that button and getting the outcomes that the senior folks have figured out are the best ones to have.
Yeah. What happens to our tooling with AI? I mean, I can imagine, I know it's already being used in the SOC, primarily more from a co-pilot perspective, which I get, right? LLMs are really good at giving us context, right? It's really fast. You give it some data, it contextualizes it. It doesn't hallucinate as much as people say. I've done some really simple tests with it, and it's pretty damn accurate, right? So it's definitely speeding up the triage piece, but is our existing tooling ready to orchestrate the next set of activities? As I said in the opening kind of remarks, is we saw this huge consolidation of the SIEM and SOAR platforms. I still don't see as much automation on the playbook side that I thought I would see. Like Nirvana, I think in the industry is, if I can trust a set of activities to happen, why not automate them? It makes us more efficient. We don't need as many resources, but I still don't see that kind of adoption. Is it a tooling problem, or is it a trust problem, or a combination of both? Like, where do we go from here?
I think it can be a combination of both, and especially if you look at today's SaaS world, where we're responsible for defending an attack surface that has just sprawled, right?
Oh my
and it's
gosh,
all in the US East 1 still, but it's absolutely sprawled. And a lot of these tools that the business now relies on are a little bit less mature in terms of maybe the permission models that they have inside those tools, right? And maybe I can only grant a super admin API key or nothing in those tools. I'm a little bit more nervous about turning that over to AI and automation, right? If the AI can do anything in the tool, do I want it to be able to do anything within the tool? And by the same token, is everything available over API? Not everything is, right? ClickOps are still very real. And so, we sort of look at this at times as, part of the problem that we're helping to solve, which is adding on the layers of control on top of these SaaS platforms, which everybody in the business needs, everybody in the business uses, but maybe aren't as mature from a security perspective. So I do think there is some maturity both in the attack surface that we're defending as well as the security tools that we use to defend it.
Yeah, so when you think about putting those kind of checkpoints in place, describe I want to call it an orchestration for lack of a better term, but what does that look like, right? Like, kind of explain it to the listeners, because I think it's really, I've researched your platform primarily for some other use cases to see how you can use it to orchestrate some other things. But walk me through an orchestration and how you can build these workflows, and how do those checkpoints come into play, and how does that drive, like, a SOC response process?
Yeah, I think a big one is around consensus controls, right? The idea that to perform dangerous actions, at least one human, maybe more than one human, should be in the loop, right? To make sure that the actual outcome is what you want.
Right.
Most platforms don't have the notion of consensus built in, right? Even some of the major cloud players, you can, if you have the admin keys, you can go do whatever you want.
Right.
And so, what we say is, well, if you build this response workflow within Tines, now you can actually add in those consensus controls. Maybe your AI agent, for example, is the one determining that, yes, we actually do want to take this response action. Let me surface that to a human, have the human validate that this is a sane action, we're not deleting production, and then perform it, right? Or maybe a junior analyst thinks that the right course of action is X, Y, or Z. That can quickly be escalated to a senior person within the SOC to say, yep, sounds like they're doing the right thing, I approve, let's make sure the action happens, right?
Yeah. So now you get a mix of machine and human.
Right.
Right? Which is, I guess, the nirvana state. Because I don't see people turning over response fully to AI, right?
Yeah.
However, if you can marry AI with decision processing, that's what, look, at the end of the day, we're all building decision support systems, right? So if I can surface up something that a human can make a really easy decision on, say, yep, that makes sense, and then downstream it does its thing, we're becoming more efficient in our operations teams, right? And I see a ton of use cases for AI. I've built a couple in my day job, and I can see how AI is definitely going to change the world of the SOC. So that balance of both machine and human is going to be important. How do we think about protecting aspects of that, though, as well? Because we don't want it to fall into the wrong hands either. So do we have to rethink kind of identity and access in this environment to put some better controls in place of some of these tools and systems as well?
I absolutely think so. And there's sort of a real philosophical question around, if an AI agent is acting, on behalf of the team, whose identity is that?
Right.
Is it just a service account? Is this a non-human identity? Is this something else entirely, a brand new thing? And I do think that when we start to let the AI do more on our behalf, there absolutely is, to your point, just a need to sort of think through these things from an IAM perspective, right? And getting a little bit more granular and saying, a human who is uncertain about the decision to make will probably back off, right? And maybe ask somebody for advice or guidance and not necessarily use the credential until they're confident. An AI that's incorrect is just going to confidently plow forward, right? And so we have to account for that and not just say like, oh, right, this is yet another identity, right? There's more nuance to it and figuring out, is this AI acting in the right context, with the right circumstances?
With the right permissions, the right access. Because I brought this up, I think it was on Tuesday in one of the interviews, because I get questioned all the time, like, how do you validate what the agent's doing? Right. And he's like, well, you have other controls in place, or you should have other controls in place.
Hopefully.
You should treat the agent like a non-human identity. It should have credentials and authentication and all these other things. You have insider threat tools that should monitor certain things. And if it does something malicious, it should set off a bunch of alarms, right? So he says, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, was kind of his point, which was just because AI is being used doesn't mean that our other tool sets are not valid anymore. They're absolutely valid as how we protect some of the aspects of what the agent's doing and how it gets access to things.
Yeah, and in a way, I think it maybe exposes a little bit of how we've relied maybe too much on policy to determine authorization versus code as authorization, for example, right? And look, if our humans are just relying on a runbook to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. That to me is a great indicator that maybe that's a spot to rethink your access controls generally, right? Because if you're relying on a human to make the right decision not to use a credential in a certain way, that's something an attacker can take advantage of as well, right? And so I do think that solving this problem for AI also helps solve it in the sense of making our systems more resilient as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we blow up the 3-tier system, we relook at our tooling, we embrace AI. Is there anything else we need to do in the SOC to get us to the next? I'll call it next generation. I hate that term, but to get to the next evolution of the SOC.
We got to start measuring the right things. If reporting the number of incidents that we handled to the board doesn't tell anyone anything about how well we're doing, how stressed we are, or if we need to do things differently, right? And I think in the Security Operations Center in particular, the killer is your true positive, false positive ratios. That's your analyst mental health. is dictated by that, right? And at the end of the day, there's a lot of MTT star metrics out there. Personally, the one I like to drive is mean time to detect, right? We want to find the adversary. We want to drive them out. That's why the people join this team in the first place, right? They want to find the bad guys.
Right.
So let's measure how well we're doing at that, right? And not just sort of, metrics of the number of tickets handled per analyst or things like that.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on BSW and how number of incidents is not the right metric for sure.
Yeah.
Matt, been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Matt, thank you so much.
Yes. If you want to learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/timesbh. For all your Black Hat content, visit securityweekly.com/Black Hat. Matt, thank you again.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It was great. Stay tuned. We're going to do the final wrap up for Black Hat 2025. Welcome to our final wrap-up show of Black Hat 2025. I'm your host, Matt Alderman. Joining me, Dr. Doug White. Just for the record, I did attempt to get a lampshade to put on my head. However,
that's what he was doing in there.
It appears Mandalay Bay has tamper-proofed them, so you cannot remove them from the lamps.
The Mandalay Bay patented non-lampshade removal system that is only available here at Mandalay Bay.
I'm telling you, that or they're torqued down so tight you cannot.
Matt ran in the other room and was always rumbling. I was like, okay, let's don't go in there. I don't know what he's doing.
Put a lampshade on my head for the final segment. Sorry.
There was an ice bucket. You could have done that.
Oh, there is an ice bucket, but no, it's not quite the same. It won't fit on my big head, anyways. I need a really big
ice bucket.
No, a big lampshade.
Call housekeeping
on my big head.
The trash can.
No,
I'm not doing. No Vegas trash cans on my head. No,
Nope,
it'd
still
be on
too
your
skinny.
face. Yeah.
All right, final day of interviews. I have a couple interesting trends, but I want to ask you first. Like, anything new come up today that kind of intrigued you in your interview segment?
Well, I mean, it's still in that AI fest, but it was about the MCP servers.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I would say it intrigued me so much was because even though I conceptually understood this concept, and I almost intuitively that's how I would do it. I did not know about that protocol. I had not read about that protocol. And so when I saw that on Michael Callahan's sheet, I was like, I need to read on this. And now I'm really scared.
Yeah.
I mean, that was terrifying.
It was 2 interviews in a row that brought up model context protocol.
Yes.
And the challenges around it. And I was sitting there thinking like, all right, so earlier in the week, I think it was yesterday, we talked about quantum, right? So quantum's coming. We have to change our encryption mechanisms, which is the backbone of the internet, by the way.
Yes.
Right? HTTPS is what allowed the internet to become the internet because we could secure payment transactions, everything. Quantum's going to completely disrupt this, right? Okay. Does that mean we completely disrupt HTTPS? Do we have a new protocol that will emerge to be the new backbone of the internet under quantum? And so I hypothesized, could it be model context protocol? Because everything is API driven, and that's what this model context protocol is really helping, is kind of like an API gateway. Does the internet turn into just a bunch of API calls, and where we need to embed quantum encryption and change the backbone of the internet? Is it MCP? It could be something else, but it got me thinking.
But I mean, part of that gels down to then identity management of agentic AI.
Yes, which also came up.
Which, I mean, I completely agree with what you're talking about. I mean, I think maybe that is what the internet becomes, because this old world,
right?
You know, I'm going to send out a guy on a horse to go to the nearest town to ask the question, is probably, I mean, and then that's the earliest internet, right? I mean, I have a question. I'm literally sending one query out on a guy on a horse, and they go off somewhere, and they come back 6 weeks later and go, you're going to die. And I mean, but maybe that's not true, because if I had sent out 100 people on horses, they may have gone to 100 towns, and the 99th one said, no, here's the cure. And they bring it back. And that's what agentic AI does for you as the internet, is now it goes out and sorts this. But that's also very terrifying, because every time you talk to a person, the likelihood that you become infected with something stupid goes up. Right. I mean, if I go out in the hallway out there and I start asking people, are they going to tear the Luxor down? I'm sorry, I've been on that all week, because that was the first thing, other than the guy saying, you look like you had a rough night, partner. And I was like, what? I was just waiting on the tram. It was noon. And the guy literally, he's like, hey, buddy, are you okay? I was like, what? Do I look home? What the hell? But
Doug always looks like this.
I know. I saw what I said to him. I said, it's just me face, as a Ringo Starr quote. And but I think if we went out and started asking people, are they going to tear the Luxor down, we're getting some arguments real fast. But after a while, we'll get to the people go, no, that's stupid. It's been a rumor forever. It's been a rumor since the 90s that they're tearing the Luxor and the Excalibur down.
It's like DEF CON being canceled.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's a rumor that became like, it's just literally no one would believe. If they had to cancel DEF CON, I don't know what the hell they would do.
Because nobody would ever believe
They need a safe word for DEF CON. Like if it says carrot on the main web page, you know it actually is canceled. It's not. But then that would become a thing, and it would just go crazy, crazy, crazy. So yeah, I mean, I do think that your model is right. I think this idea of a new internet that has the capacity of quantum, where we could literally ask a question and now we can dispatch thousands of agents to go search the darkest corners of the earth for the answers to this question and bring them all back is part of that. Part of that protocol, though, is going to have to be identity management, because which of those agents are now infected with stupidity?
Right. Which ones are authorized to do that you know and trust and can count on to get it? And identity did come up. How do you treat the identity of an agentic AI bot? Agent,
and
whatever you want to call it.
How do you do an identity on an MCP server?
Right. Is it a service account? Is it a non-human identity? It has to be something. It's going to have to be something. Otherwise, how do you trust it, right?
And you're not going to be able to. And so here was another piece of this that I started thinking about when we were talking about these agentic AI things, because Michael was really like expanding my mind, man. Like I turned on, tuned in, and dropped out or something, but I was starting to think about it. Almost turns this into a statistical modeling problem, because now, okay, so I ask a question. I say, should I drink this? We will say what it is. And I send out hundreds of thousands of agents searching the darkest corners of the web to provide analysis of this, and they all come back. But the answers are not consistent. I mean, I don't even think I get a consistent answer if I say, what is 2 + 2? What is Euler's number? What is a Planck coefficient or whatever? And I get back this, okay, this percentage said drink it, this percentage said don't drink it, and this percentage said carrot. And like, okay, who do I believe?
Right.
And even if the majority said drink it, does that still mean it's okay? Or is the majority going like, let's make him drink it, man? And it's really scary, because I don't know what that internet looks like. I mean, now, to be fair, just to be fair to all of you, the current internet is the same way, in a sense.
It is, in a sense.
Because if I do a search and I say, should I drink this?
Yeah.
And I put whatever it is in, I'll get a list of 100,000 websites. Yeah. And if I took the time to click all of them, I might have the same exact problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So somewhere we got some kind of identity problem. We've got a quantum problem. We've got
a communication AI problem, right?
I agree.
And it's all coming to a head. Look, and this is what got me thinking about it. Like, all right, I'm using agents to do all this stuff. What do I need Google for anymore as a search browser?
I've seen that a lot. Yeah, I've seen that. Like,
people are replacing Google searches
is this
with
the end of the search engine? I mean,
right?
They're replacing themselves.
Yeah, true.
I mean, they're like, we're putting AI in our search engine.
Gemini's doing everything now.
And Gemini's doing it, and I'm like, okay, your search engine's gone. I mean, like,
so think about this now. I'm going broader only because there's so many potential innovation points, right? What happens to advertising, which drives revenue for a company like Alphabet and others under a new internet infrastructure, right? Do the old monetization mechanisms that created some of these mega companies, Meta, Google, etc., do they completely get
click
disrupted?
Problem, right? That's the click problem, because that's the current monetization model. Is like, you put an ad on my screen, if I click it, you make money.
Right.
And
does it change the entire monetization of the internet? Like, these are, I'm sure somebody smarter than me is sitting in a room thinking through this, but as we've been having these conversations throughout the week, you start piecing these little things together. You're like, that's a scary 5-year path.
Paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And I mean, those are always scary, right? I mean, when you get on that little wiggly part of the graph, that's the scary part, because I mean, maybe on the other side of it, it's great, but there's the wiggly part that's not very fun, and weird things happen and you don't know. And I think for security professionals, that wiggly part is the most dangerous time, because there's been a great deal of uncertainty. You don't, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the risk of HTTP and HTTPS, and I know the risk of DNS, and I know the risk of all these things. But when you just totally change it and you call it, it's going to be QTTPS, it's something completely different. It's encrypted with some kind of quantum algorithm, and it's using an AI agent interface to gather data and a statistical neural net model or something to analyze the data to provide you with a statistical graph of what this data looks like. I don't know what all the threats are in that mess.
Right.
I mean, eventually we may know, right?
Eventually, another 30 plus years from now, but by then I'm completely out.
Well, yeah, I'll be AI
I might
enhanced
be 6
by
feet
then.
under by then.
No, you'll be AI enhanced.
Ooh.
You'll be like,
God, that's scary.
I am Locutus of Borg. I'll be hosting this show today. Prepare to be assimilated. mofos.
That is a scary thought. Scary thought.
I bet somebody would say that on camera.
So that ties into one of my other topics.
Okay.
So this MCP thing was just, it came up a couple times today and yesterday. The other one is obviously the browser problem still to this day. And the enterprise, the advantage of an enterprise browser. And I did this kind of on purpose, but I don't want it to sound kind of rude, but as a consumer, I want a better browser.
Yes.
I want a better browser. I want a privacy-preserving browser.
Yes.
Why does only the enterprise get to have their own privacy-preserving browser? I want one.
We don't have an enterprise.
So anybody who wants to build, I mean, there's some out there, but the challenge I've seen with them is they're based off some of the, they're always a version behind. They don't work on certain websites because they're not up to the right support level, etc. But gosh, I would love one. I would love a consumer island browser. I would love it because I feel a lot more comfortable doing some of the stuff that I do on a regular basis on the internet, right?
No, I'm 100%. We were even talking about this earlier, but I mean, I'm 100% with you because a consumer island browser. Listen, I mean, if I use that at work, and like I said, I don't have an enterprise. I barely have like a shuttlecraft. I'm not there. I'm not even on Voyager. I'm like, you know.
You're in Deep Space Nine, is where you
no,
are.
I'm not Deep Space Nine. I'm below a shuttlecraft. You know, and I mean, so I would like to have a consumer grade thing that's been sort of vetted by enterprise, because when enterprise is saying these things are good, these things are reliable, these things are safe, then I feel more comfortable with that. And what you and I were talking about, of course, was like, if I use this at work, why can't I use it at home?
Yeah.
And I should use it at home because it's probably dangerous if I'm, not doing that.
Well, yeah, because it comes back to the browser plugin challenge, right? You had an interview on this today on how, what is it, one of the coupon plugins is a malicious piece of code from China, right? As a consumer,
7-zip.
As a consumer, we load plugins on our browsers all the time. How do we know? So it's interesting because Islands actually analyzed all 230,000 plugins and rated them from a reputational risk perspective. And so you can set up a policy at the corporate level that says, don't allow any plugin under a certain level of confidence to be loaded. Gosh, as a consumer, I would freaking love that thing.
Because I mean, literally, if and when I do install a plugin, which I'm telling you right now is a rare thing.
Yeah.
I already install it on a sandbox. I put it in a virtual machine and I run it and I see what it does. And then I study it and I do research on it and I just open queries even on it. If I had Agentic AI, I could send out 100,000 queries and try to find out, are people posting that this is problematic? Is it bad? It's collecting information before I would ever dream of putting it on my system.
Yep.
But at the same time, when you need it, and it's saying, oh, you want to get these tickets for 20% off, just click here and install our plugin and you're good to go.
Right.
And, I would say...
Next thing you know, it's scraping all your data. It's scraping credentials. You wonder why we have a credential problem. Not only are we giving them away for free, they're being scraped for free because we load plugins. Like there's so many downstream.
And 99% of people don't even know what he just said. I mean, I don't mean you watching. I mean, people out in the general public. When you start saying scraping your credentials, they're going like, "What? I'm fine."
But here's what people need to understand: the 99% that don't understand are your employees.
Yeah.
That are doing this on your machines, that are creating security holes in your corporate environment that allows these breaches and attacks to happen.
So, I think a consumer island browser, please.
I'd love one.
I would really
I'd be the
excited
guinea
about
pig.
that.
I'd be your guinea pig. I'd be your test case.
Volunteer, beta tester. I mean, happy to do that. But I mean, right now, I'm constantly searching for better browser experience just because of that, because I don't trust the big players.
Yeah.
I mean, they can tell you can. Sorry, guys, you can tell me all day long that you're not collecting my data. I'm like, my data is damn valuable, and I just don't know how you're going to resist that siren
Look,
song.
I monitor all my data on the data brokers. Every about 30 to 45 days, I have to go in and request it to all be removed again.
I monitor your data on there too. I like to see what Matt's up to.
It's all being scraped. It's all being stored on data broker websites. You ask for opt-outs. You get them partially done. Maybe they get done, but I'll tell you, it doesn't take long for all that data to show back up.
No, it's just like that guy that keeps writing your number on the bathroom wall. You can wipe it off 100 times. They just write it back every other day. It just keeps happening.
We're going to leave it there, Doug. I think that's a good way to end this show.
I think so,
Don't
too.
go into the bathroom. You'll see Doug's number.
Call me.
Everyone, it was a wonderful BlackHat 2025.
It was.
We will see you again next year.
Maybe
here
before
at
that.
Mandalay Bay.